Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock, so welcome to the Scrutiny for Communities meeting. Just a few housekeeping rules to begin with. My name is Gwilym Ray. I'm the chair. I represent an area around with Liscombe, and we have members of the committee from across the county. Before I proceed, can I check that everybody is able to hear in the room and online? Yeah, thumbs up from Councillor Filmer. The agenda pack with papers is available on mod.gov or directly from the council website from the link that has been sent out to members and is of course available to members of the public. When I invite someone to speak, could you clearly state who you are for the benefit of anybody who's listening to the meeting so they can identify who it is if they need to. I'd also like to warmly welcome any members of the public and the media who are joining us today. There are no planned fire drills, and if the alarm does sound, please follow the Democratic Services officers out of the building. Need to advise you that the meeting is being recorded by the council and will be available online later. Finally, as agendas are now viewed electronically, can I request that members and officers refer to page numbers from the published agenda pack to assist those present in finding the appropriate information. Okay, thank you. Right, well, before we start, let's start with item 1, which is apologies for absence. Jamie, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, committee. We have received apologies for absence from Councillor Aulia, who is on a 6-month leave of absence. Also, apologies received from Councillor Pryor-Sankey, Councillor Hobbs, Councillor Hart, for whom Councillor Osborne is substituting, and Councillor Osborne is online, as she's just confirmed in the chat. Councillor Power, another committee member, is online as well, Chair, and Executive Director Chris Hall has given his apologies.
And I've had a notice from Federica Smith-Roberts, the executive member. She sent apologies this morning as well. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting. They have been circulated, that the meeting was held on the 17th of September. Are there any comments or adjustments needed? Councillor Coles, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just that I appreciate I was absent from that meeting, but I had tendered my apologies. Make that correction.
That could be corrected, please. Are there any other comments that we need to register? If not, on the assumption that everybody's happy, can I have a proposer that we accept the minutes? Councillor Coles, a seconder. Councillor Kendall, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Unanimous. The Coles apologies. Okay, thank you. Right. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda today?
Power online.
Councillor Power, please, and then Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me. I have to declare an interest because I am also employed by Freedom Leisure on a 0-hour contract as I'm a duty manager and lifeguard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kendall?
Thank you, Chair. Same interest on item 5, but I'm actually a member of leisure operators.
So that's a sort of personal interest more than anything else. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Any others? No. Good, good, good. Do we have any public questions today?
None received, Chair.
Fine. Thank you very much. Right. So we now move on to item 5, which is the annual update from our leisure operators. We have presentations from Everyone Active, who operate in the west, that's the old Taunton Deane area, and Freedom Leisure, who operate predominantly in the south area, but have taken on some interest in the Sedgemoor or the north area recently. So I think in order I have on my sheet here that Mark Washington and Sally Thomas Ellis will present the update from Everyone Active. So welcome to the meeting, and welcome to Dan, who is our leisure. You're the head of service, culture and leisure.
Thank you, Chair.
Are you going to introduce everybody?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Good morning, councillors. So I am Dan Webb. I'm the Head of Service at the Council for Culture and Leisure. So I just wanted to kick off, and I'll just try and share my screen. Right, bear with me. I knew this would happen. There we go. Hopefully you can see that now. Great, thank you. So just as a brief introduction before I hand over to our colleagues at Everyone Active, just as a reminder really that the council does not directly manage any leisure facilities these days. So our responsibility in the service is for our partnerships. There are different arrangements in place, all inherited from the former district councils. So if I just move down to the next slide. So the council owns 16 leisure facilities across the county. As I say, they're managed by different operators. Today, I'm delighted that we've got two of our operators here to tell us about their operations over the last year or so. It's worth just noting that the sports centres in the east of the county are under a different arrangement. So an organisation, Fusion Lifestyle, has a lease rather than a leisure contract. So there's no obligation for them to attend these meetings, but we do have a good, positive working relationship with Fusion, and we receive information on their services too on a regular basis. So I hope you'll find the information that we're about to hear from our partners useful and positive. There's going to be time for questions at the end of each section. So after our colleagues with Everyone Active have finished, I think we'll have a few minutes to ask more about them. So unless there are any other immediate questions, and with your permission, Chair, I'll hand over to Mark from Everyone Active, which, as you say, is the contract we have in the West.
Hey, thank you. Well, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Dan, for the intros. I'll move this a little bit closer to me. So hopefully you all enjoyed the annual report that was submitted back at the start of this financial year. And today, in the next sort of 15 minutes, I'll attempt to cover the key areas from the business from 2024-25. But I also think it's relevant to try and touch on the first 6 months of this financial year as well, because there's been a lot that's been happening since April. So just a general overview of Everyone Active. Just going to pick out some key points. Everyone Active were established back in 1987, and then some 32 years later, the partnership for Taunton and Wellington commenced on the 1st of August 2019. And we've got 235 sites across England, working with 69 different local authorities. Just a quick reminder for those centres that come under Everyone Active in Somerset, and these are in order of sort of footfall. So the biggest centre that we've got is Blackbrook Leisure Centre and Spa, Wellington Sports Centre, Wellsprings Leisure Centre, Taunton Swimming Pool. In a separate lot, but still part of the same contract, we've got Vivery Golf and Adventure Centre. So those are the 5 centres that I oversee within the Somerset contract. Just, I think it's quite important to look at what we've done over the last 18 months when it comes to the investment into the facilities, because like other organisations, it's quite tough out there at the moment in the marketplace. But I'm pleased to see that the investment for Everyone Active continues into the assets that we've obviously got within Somerset. Started really going back to July 2024 when the Wellington new gym opened. So that was all part of the large decarbonisation programme that we went through together with Somerset Council. And you're probably aware of that project in a lot of detail. Completely new roof, new air handling, all the gas boilers were removed from the leisure centre, and we took the opportunity to build a new gym because the old gym was sort of not fit for purpose with regards to the size and the growing community of Wellington. And you'll see later in my report that that's had a very, very positive impact on the community. We've taken the opportunity to do a refresh of the dry side change rooms at Blackbrook Leisure Centre. We've also had to invest in the high ropes course. It's 13 years old now, the high ropes course at Vivery, made of the natural product of wood, and obviously it comes with its challenges then. So we've invested 39,000 on the high ropes course for new wooden elements just to keep the course operating and safe. And we've also taken the opportunity, there's a little 18-hole mini golf course. It's not a crazy golf, it's got no windmills or anything like that. It's a mini golf course. And we took the opportunity to, again, invest £12,000 this year on the surface, on the carpet at the golf course. And you know, that was great time. And we've had such a fantastic spring and summer weather-wise. It's been perfect for outdoor facilities. We've got another 2 projects happening. So we've got a refresh of the gym facilities at Blackbrook and Wellsprings Leisure Centre. That will see a complete change in the cardio kit, new flooring, decoration, and give it a nice refresh for what will be a busy Q4, hopefully, for us. In addition to that, to top up to the million, you know, we've invested over £100,000 on life cycle matrix replacement over the last 18 months. I've included the last point about paddle courts. Some people say padel, I say paddle. We're working in key partners, so that's not a direct investment from us. That is working with a company called Paddle Stars to bring probably the fastest growing sport to Taunton, and I'll cover that in a little bit later. But that's in addition to the £1 million investment that Everyone Active have made into the facilities over the last 18 months. That's just a general view, a general look of the decarbonisation project at Wellington. So this was an old mezzanine floor with a really dated soft play. So we took the opportunity to really change and transition that centre, and you can see it's looking really smart. There we go. Some nice little artistic impressions of the little golf course down at Vivery, and obviously now that remains open 12 months of the year, but the high ropes course is obviously only seasonal. I don't know if you can see it from the left-hand photo. That's just the elements, the wooden elements that we've had to replace that I mentioned earlier. And you can see a little trespasser on the right. I think it was quite a confused squirrel trying to chew away at the metal bolt there. But we do get problems with woodpeckers, squirrels, and every other creature that want to come onto the high ropes course. This is then the transition. So this is quite fresh. And if you haven't had a chance to come down to Blackbrook Leisure Centre and Spa in Taunton to see the paddle courts, I'd encourage you to do so. So we've, as I said, worked in partnership with Paddle Stars. We have 3 courts there. They are outdoor courts at present. So we're obviously going into the winter months where usage will be lower. But really pleased to say that we are the first, you know, location in Taunton to bring paddle. We're working with obviously Dan and the team and our county sports partnership and the LTA just to ensure that, you know, we've got the right locations. And obviously Blackbrook being a recognised racket sports centre for tennis, it is the perfect location for paddle to be formed. And there's just a couple more on a nice sunny day where the photos have been taken. Just to cover a few things now on accidents and incidents and customer feedback. These are just numbers, but we've had 152 recorded accidents within the last financial year. Now that is compared to 120 the previous year. Now that has gone up, and that is mainly due to Wellington. Part of the decarbonisation programme meant we didn't have a swimming pool for 10 months. So accidents are clearly going to be lower during that time. The participation at Wellington during that decarb project obviously declined because we were going, you know, working through a building site. But there are no real concerns with the number of accidents we've recorded. And 62 recorded incidents during the contract compared to 67. So the incidents are comparable. One thing I'd like to say, and it's compliment to the partnership working we've got with Somerset Council. I didn't put this in the slide because I didn't want to tempt fate, but we've had, over the last 9 years, we've had a number of unauthorised encampments by the GRT community. This is the first year that we've not had any unauthorised encampments in any of our leisure facilities, and that has to go to the continued efforts that the team make with site security. But obviously we've invested into additional measures at Wellington now that all 3 of our main leisure centres with car parks have height access control barriers, which, you know, with the other measures that we've taken, it seems to be working and doing its job. I've just put one main element of customer feedback because I think this is directly linked to accidents and incidents, and it's the positive feedback we've had on Wellsprings Leisure Centre and Wellington Sports Centre. And those 2 centres on the recent customer survey that we've done as a company appeared in the top 15 of leisure centres across the whole company for its feedback from its customers and members on the cleanliness standards of those facilities, which is worthy of note. So performance and how did we do last financial year, and keeping one eye on obviously the previous year, it's obviously important. So we had 922,688 visitors, which is an 11% increase on the full financial year. Now, you have to take consideration into the Wellington decarb project because obviously that was a significant impact during that period of time. But it's really pleasing to see that the health and fitness membership, if you look at the end of the 2 financial years, so March 2025 to 2024, we've seen an increase in 498 members across the contract. And the majority of those, at least 400, have come from obviously the new project over at Wellington. That's had a significant impact. Swimming lessons customers, again, we've seen an increase year on year for swimming lessons of 130 swimmers. Finding it a little bit tougher this year with our swimming lesson enrolment. So that's obviously a key priority and focus going forward for myself and my management team to ensure that we keep that momentum a positive one year on year. I'm just going to do a quick snapshot really from around the contracts. I think it's quite important to understand. So my leisure colleagues behind will have heard the word Quest. Quest is a leisure accreditation similar to Ofsted, similar to Investors and People. And part of our partnership agreement with Somerset Council is our main leisure centres have to go through Quest accreditation. So you have an assessment and you have a mystery visit on our facilities. And I'm really pleased to report that all leisure centres, obviously within my contract, passed, and we had an excellent report rating for the report and assessment that was done at Wellsprings. Both Vivery Golf and Adventure Centre and Blackbrook Leisure Centre were part of the company accreditation for Investors and People. And on the 16th of October, we held what was a national campaign for the Restart the Heart campaign. You've probably seen a lot of that on the social media in and around those dates of the 16th. Now, we had 27 customers who attended. That was customers and colleagues. So not all colleagues who work for us have a formal qualification. So those drop-in clinics were very, very useful. That gave us a general overview of CPR and how to use the basics when it comes to defib. And that's very important. And I'll come on to that in a minute with my presentation. We continue to run the enhanced access scheme at Wellington Sports Centre, so working with the local PCNs. That's continued to be a success. And we had a very successful family fun day at Wellsprings Leisure Centre, which was funded by Taunton Town Council. Close to 1,000 children and parents attended that event. That was completely free to attend. So that was a good one for the community. So just winding the clock forward, it sounds, and it will be a bit bizarre, so fundraising for Dale's funeral. So in my 19 years of working in the contract, I've never actually had to face a death in service, which we had at Wellington Sports Centre back in September. 39-year-old Dale was working as a fitness motivator, and unfortunately he had a severe cardiac incident. And despite best efforts of the air ambulance and medical services and the centre team, we we lost Al on that day. Now, this really, I've included this because it really goes to show the team spirit on the back of what is a tragic accident. They came together, it was unexpected clearly, and they did a massive fundraising campaign to raise money for his funeral. And I think that goes to show, you know, the community spirit and how they all come together in very difficult circumstances. At Blackbrook Leisure Centre and Spa, we've got the Activity and Wellbeing Centre, and one of our customers was looking at how they could raise money for a sports wheelchair, and Jane and the team at Blackbrook have gone upon over and above really, and taken on different fundraising campaigns. And I'm glad to say now they've now got the right funds to pass on now, so that that wheelchair can be manufactured. And Nina actually participated in the recent Taunton 10K event, so that's great on her behalf. So where are we after the 6 months of this financial year? Hopeful we're going to top the 1 million visitors this year, which will be an amazing achievement. You can remember the last slide, it was just over 922,688 people. If we get over 1 million, that will be a great achievement for us. It has been a fantastic year, as I mentioned, for outdoor facilities, not only in 24-25, but we all know how dry it's been this year. And the golf course at Vivery, although at times it did look like the Sahara Desert, I've never seen a golf course look so brown, so many cracks starting to appear. But that location with the high ropes, the mini golf and the actual golf course has had the best year in 19 years, which is really pleasing to report. You can see our health and fitness members. So this is now looking at September. So where before we were comparing to the full financial year in March, this is looking at the 6 months versus the 6 months last year. And we are still above where we need to be. Ideally, those numbers could be and need to be a little bit higher, but we're going into our quieter period now, and come January, February and March, where obviously the fitness world goes crazy. We'll hopefully see a lot of those customers come and join us, if it is only for 3 months, but that's our challenge, to retain them for a little bit longer. And I mentioned earlier about swimming customers. You know, that is an area that of increased competition, especially in the Wellington area. When we were forced to close the swimming pool for 10 months because of the works that were going ahead, a number of local businesses took, and rightly so, took the opportunity to set up their own swim schemes in Wellington. So it's been slightly more challenging to get those customers back to us at Wellington than what we'd hoped for. So we need to continue working on our marketing strategy to get our swimmers back and learning to swim in Wellington Sports Centre. Just a quick slide on GP referral. So we obviously work in coordination with the Proactive scheme, with SAS, our Community Sports Partnership. And I'm pleased to say now that we've got GP exercise referral schemes at each of our 3 locations, at Blackbrook, Wellsprings and at Wellington. So Blackbrook is a new addition that's only come online from the summer, but the early indications really show that that is going to be a popular location for exercise referral. Again, working with the local surgeries, we've seen 271 referrals in 6 months. And of those 271, we've completed 201 inductions, and we've 134 go through the 12-week scheme for the exercise referral scheme across the centres that we manage in Somerset Contract. I actually did that a little bit quicker than what I thought. So that is either whether it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes, that is the presentation done. So hopefully it gives you a bit of a idea of the challenges and the areas that we've been working on, both financially and our community work within the fundraising opportunities that we've had. So we are now open to questions.
Well, thank you very much. That's a pretty comprehensive scamper across everything you've been doing. I mean, I think my initial thought is that we have something here that seems to be working well for you, and it seems to be clearly working very well for the local communities, which is great, which of course is the whole point of the thing. Members of the committee, do you have any questions? Andy
Thank
Kendall.
you, Chair. I only have one. You never mentioned on about electricity on all these places. Have they all got solar energy helping reduce your electrical bills?
Yes, so we have solar at Blackbrook Leisure Centre and Spa, Taunton Pool, and now at Wellington Sports Centre. So we monitor our solar usage on obviously a weekly basis, and we're working obviously in partnership with Somerset Council on the purchasing of the solar for Wellington. So we have reviews scheduled in, and definitely by the end of the financial year, so this time next year I'll be able to report on the actual overall solar consumption, and then what we've been able to generate ourselves from that centre. It's not everything. Obviously, we still need to call upon the grid. Although the leisure centre at Wellington, it's had a massive investment with a new roof and energy efficiencies around the plants, we still need to purchase from the grid. And obviously, as a commodity, we know that electric is obviously far more expensive than gas, but early indications show that it's doing very well. But I will report next time on that one.
Okay, thank you. Mark Cravis, please.
Already. Thank you, Chair. Oh, there you go. I can see it now. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, a couple of questions actually. I don't know whether they're for yourselves or Dan, or one might be for Dan, one might be, because obviously you talk about the investment in Wellington, and you talk about the refresh, and you got figures in there of £500,000. Because I appreciate Somerset West and Taunton, I'm thinking it's dying foe, spent some money on Wellington. Is that money you're quoting there? Is that your own? That's your own company's money. I'll let you answer that. I can come back with more.
Yeah, correct. Thank you. Yeah. So the £500,000 that I quoted at Wellington Sports Centre was Everyone Active's own funds. There was contribution for the air handling from the council. That was addition to the 500.
I just wanted to clear that up, because obviously there's quite a long contract. You've got quite a long contract. I think my question I suppose I have is age profile of your customers, because obviously I find it difficult, excuse me, rest of the panel, but rest of the committee, I get slightly difficult, get excited about swimming pools when I live in West Somerset, and I know the dearth of lack of facilities that we have in the West, and I call the real West. But your age profile, is that growing? Because I assume it is. I mean, it's very interesting that you talk about investing in paddle, because that's quite interesting, because I've heard that's really growing. But the age profile, is that growing, or are you getting younger people in? And while I'm talking about age profile, just a little, I mean, I've not tried for 3 or 4 years to try and go swimming in Taunton. But can you still get paper timetables? Was it all? I was quite shocked when I walked in and you have to go online, and I'm not a big digital inclusion zealot as some might be, but I was quite shocked that you couldn't just get a timetable for swimming. And then, I think I've tried elsewhere where you actually had to book to go swimming, which I thought was quite weird. I know, call me old fashioned, but I thought you just like be able to turn up once in a while. And of course, if you're talking about higher age profile, which we've got particularly in West Somerset, that digital inclusion is quite a thing, I would have thought. And one final question, if I may, Chair. You talked about you're working on paddle, you're working with the LTA. So that means there's grants coming from the LTA, and I presume that's their money rather than yours or the council's, should I say?
Thank you. I think I've captured 3 questions there. So I'll deal with the paddle one first of all. No, the LTA are not contributing towards the paddle courts. That is, the investment is purely coming from Paddle Stars. So what we've got is an agreement with Paddle Stars, and they manage the whole process, the whole booking process. So no, there's no funding from the LTA for paddle at Blackbrook. Timetables, you're right. As an industry, we are more online now with regards to our timetable, whether that's online or via the app. I would like to say they're both user friendly. The feedback we get from our customers are. I'm sure we do have a laminated copy of the pool timetable underneath the reception desk on request. In all fairness, we do not get many requests, but again, we're not obviously putting those publications out there, but they are available on request if required. With regards to the age profile, I'll absolutely, via Dan, I can provide you with all of our data that we have for each of the leisure facilities, for each of the activities on the actual age profile of our customers. Like probably our other leisure providers, we provide from babies right the way through. So what's quite interesting is that the group exercise program is one particular area of our business. Our average age is 51 and above. And that's one that's quite interesting when you look at the profile generically, I suppose, across our leisure centres. That's one that does stand out, and we're not seeing the new instructors come through either on certain disciplines within our group exercise program. So we've obviously got to have a targeted approach to attract new people into the class programs. For the gym, yeah, it's a full range of profile, but absolutely, I'll provide that information for you, for Dan, so you can see per each activity, because it does vary for each activity, and it does slightly vary, what centre. We still book swimming lessons. I think that was a question there as well. The overwhelming feedback that we've had from customers is that they like to know how busy the lanes are for lane swimming. So that has one that's really carried on from COVID, and we continue to obviously listen to the customer feedback, and where it has been successful, yes, we still book for our lane swimming sessions.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, nobody else in the room at the moment, so I have two councillors online. The first one is Councillor Sue Osborne, please. Sue?
Thank you, Chairman. Forgive me if I keep my camera off, but my bandwidth is extremely narrow, and it is not averse to throwing total wobblers. It already has done this so once this morning. My question is, it sounds like you've had a really good year. Well done on that. And I think the people in Taunton and Wellington are very fortunate, from the sound of it, to have you as their leisure provider, and certainly in terms of the capital expenditure that you're making. How sustainable going forward will be your capital expenditure programmes in the event that, and I hope it doesn't happen, that you see a sort of downturn in use or downturn in figures? We all know that there's some tax hikes coming along the way, and that will reduce customers' disposable income, and may well impact perhaps on how they use your services. That's my first question. And my second one is, I was quite interested to see the numbers on the GP referral programme that you were doing. It seemed like sort of quite a few people followed up their GP referrals, but how do you intend to improve the completions rate of those GP referrals, so more people complete rather than drop out?
Thank you. I'll answer the GP referral conversion rate, because what I probably should have added, and it's a good spot, is that there are still a number of people still in the process of the 12 weeks, so they won't actually appear as a starter. We have had a number that haven't started the programme, despite clear, obviously, communications with certain PCNs. The information doesn't always get through because it is a paid scheme, when a lot of people do think that it's actually free. So that is a slight barrier. But the enhanced access scheme, obviously, over at Wellington on a Saturday is free. So there are opportunities there if they're able to get to the leisure centre in Wellington. So I see that growing. We've obviously got to continue to monitor our clients through the exercise referral scheme, and I know that completion rate will increase. As for capital investment, we are fully committed. We've got another 9 years left from next April on the contract for the main leisure centres, and it's almost like a catch-22 situation, because if we don't go through this refresh and investment, other operators will obviously take that as an opportunity. So we have to continue investing into the facilities, and as a local authority, I must say that the assets directly under my contract are really decent assets that are well maintained and well invested in. So yeah, you've got a good news story there that we will continue investing. We've got a life cycle matrix commitment as well with the council that we have to comply to. So that obviously has its advantages as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's right. Just before
Anything
I
more, Sue?
well, I do have a question that's sort of probably for Dan. Shall I leave that till the end of the leisure presentations?
Should we take it now while you're online?
You can do, but my question actually concerns our third operator. So I think
Okay,
it
all right,
might
so-
be better on reflection if I hang on till the
Yeah,
presentation
okay.
is finished.
That sounds fair enough. We'll do that after the second presentation. Okay, Tom Power
thank you.
online, please.
Thanks, Chair, and I just wanted to say thanks to Mark and the team for their tour around Everyone Active. I thought the facilities were absolutely fantastic. But I've just forgotten one question that I think I did raise on my tour. It was regarding air source heat pumps, and I know certain swimming pools find it a bit difficult to maintain the temperature. I just wanted to know if you guys have that issue still ongoing, or you've fixed that issue and you don't have that anymore. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm smiling here, Councillor Powell, because we did have some early concerns. Now, the pool's been reopened for 12 months, working with the solar panels and the air source heat pumps. And yes, initially, with any new multi-million-pound system, it does have its teething problems. So we had issues with water temperature for the showers. For my sins, I did actually use the gym on Monday and I used the showers, and the water temperature was absolutely lovely. And we've had no significant complaints about the air temperature or the water temperature. And as we've actually gone through one winter under the decarbonisation programme, I'm confident that going into the colder months in the winter, the system set up at Wellington, which is different to others that have experienced problems, will cope with the extreme weather conditions and temperatures.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Mark and Sally, thank you very much for a very comprehensive run through the business and how it's all working. So thank you both very much. And we'll now move on to your colleagues from Freedom Leisure, Lee, Ricky and Matt. Just a moment to swap things over. Okay, Dan, did you want to say a few words of introduction, or should we leap straight in? Okay, well, all right, let's leap straight in. Welcome to the meeting. And as I say, you cover mainly South Somerset, but you're taking on some interest in and around the Bridgewater area as of now, more or less, I think, isn't it? Fairly shortly anyway. Thank you.
Morning all. I'm Lee Thomas, Regional Manager for Freedom Leisure, covering the West and Wales. We have Ricky Hayes from what was 1610, and Ricky will come on to the second half of the presentation. And we've also got Matt Wickham, Chief Operating Officer for Freedom Leisure. I'll be covering the 24-25 annual report, he says. Yeah. Part of what I'll be covering will be the Golden Stones, Wincanton, Westlands, Chard and the Healthy Community Services. I just wanted to take time to remind you of your own strategic objectives. So enabling healthy communities, improve the health and well-being of local residents, reduce obesity levels, particularly with the targeted groups, educating, protecting and providing opportunities for young people, and work towards being carbon neutral by 2030. And again, I just wanted to show alignment with that in terms of Freedom Leisure's key strategic priorities: delivering high quality leisure services, delivering financially and environmentally sustainable facilities, delivering increased opportunities to participate in sport and physical activity, delivering increased levels of activity from underrepresented areas, demographic of users, and providing wider social value beyond the direct impact of the facilities. And just looking at what we call the Freedom Wheel, it's our corporate vision. And essentially, we are here, we exist only to improve lives through leisure. And that's delivering that for our client, obviously yourselves, our colleagues and our customers. So ultimately, it's you all that matter. We deliver that through operational excellence, passionate, bespoke and local initiatives, environmentally responsible, professionally trusted partner, and through innovation and creativity. And you'll see a lot of that come through as we progress through the presentation this morning. Quick reflection, year in numbers. So we're now at 4,842 fitness members, which is an increase year on year of 10.5%, which reflects prior years' capital investment in these areas throughout our facilities. In terms of fitness visitors, just fitness alone, that is group exercise and the fitness floor, is a 4.3% increase year on year, and now 229,000 footfall through gyms. On top of that, we have 141,000 swim visitors, which is actually a reduction of 3.5% year on year. And as we develop through the presentation this morning, we'll explain that there were a number of closures to support some of the decarbonisation works throughout 24-25, which had an impact on access to our swimming pools. Despite that, our Learn to Swim programme has grown by 10.1%, truly down to the fantastic programme that we operate within Freedom Leisure and the delivery of our instructors on the Learn to Swim programme. Across the year, that was 163,000 in terms of footfall. Total visitors across all sites and the community services is 632,000, which is a 2.8% increase year on year. Specifically looking at our Learn to Swim programme, we've maintained 2,997 throughout the year, which equates to 463 lessons a week. And we're pleased to say that we've got 60 swim teachers on our payroll delivering weekly classes for us. And we've marginally grown since then. I'll come on to that at the back end of this presentation. In terms of fitness members, we're 4,842, which has grown significantly year on year, as you'll see the trajectory on the graph on the right-hand side of the presentation. And again, that's due to the prior investments of 22 through to 24. Within that, we deliver 154 group exercise classes a week. In terms of special population and targeted demographic areas, we have 990 concessionary members over the age of 65, which is an increase of 42 year on year. We have 551 passport to leisure means tested, 59 increase year on year, 13 increase year on year for our 3-month health membership, which is due to GP referral or enhanced access program that we facilitate with the local PCNs. And we've recently launched our FLAIR program, which is our talented athlete scheme. Essentially, your sport needs to be recognised by UK governing body, and you need to be performing in the top 3 within your chosen sport. And we have 6 of those operating, having access to our sites locally. In terms of male-female split, we have 53% female and 47% male. In terms of how these memberships are paid and how access is funded, 69% are paid either through direct debit or annual upfront payments. 27% of our usage is through pay-as-you-go, and 4% is other, which is largely funded either through ourselves or through partners. A quick review of our Healthy Communities provision, which is delivery outside of our leisure centres. We work with many partners, which is over 10, which it's the same year on year ultimately. 3,100 women and girls engaged in tailored classes that we offer both inside and outside the facilities. We've secured over 85,000 of external funding. The overall engagement to the footfall is 21,600. 25,400 additional income through active communities programs alone. So that's where we've piloted a program. We've used the funding to get the program off the ground, and now customers are accessing.
Go on, that's all right.
Is that a question? Sorry.
So
I'll proceed. Over 4,000 new social media followers, which is 13.7 across all platforms. 1,497 footfall and 177 new referrals through our enhanced access programs. 695 extra care footfall delivered across all 6 houses. 1,816 footfall through our exercise referral pathway, and our delivery plan within our active communities program is just shy of 13,000 for 24-25. And I'm pleased to say that here is the performance. And the second column there, 24-25, shows the target that we set out in the original plan versus what we delivered each of the quarter versus the total. And we clearly over-delivered on what we anticipated from the start to the end of the year. Now, our program, which the actual plan itself, Dan, you have a copy of, and we're happy to share that wider, but it looks at 5 key themes, which is active sport, active young people, active aging, active communities, and active health. And each of that is broken down into key specific areas which we can demonstrate. Our customer service in terms of Net Promoter Score. So this is how likely our customers would recommend using our service. We scored a score of 34 against the national benchmark of 27. I'm pleased to say that it's an increase on the previous year, despite the national perspective decreasing to 27. So we certainly have a strong following across all of our sites within the Somerset area. I wanted to be truly transparent today and just give a perspective of the good and the bad, if you like, and what we're going to do in terms of rectifying some of the concerns. So this is a generalized view of our customer feedback. We've got a fantastic workforce, and we deliver an excellent service across our sites. And this isn't just me saying that, this is our customers who are saying that. We deliver fantastic quality classes and with great instructors, which is the reason why we're seeing the growth that we're seeing year on year. We have enjoyable swim experiences. Many customers express satisfaction for the facilities that we operate. And finally, cleanliness, which is always one to discuss, because as you can see on here as well, it's also been highlighted as a negative aspect. But what we have done for that is we've introduced monthly deep clean schedules with daily, weekly, monthly check-in sheets. And each of that is reviewed and signed off by the general manager and the area manager to ensure compliance. And we're pleased to say that we've seen a marginal reduction in the negative comments with reference to cleanliness. And finally, facility issues, concerns raised around condition of equipment and pool temperature, which was one of the previous questions that we had. We've had a change in personnel of the area technical manager. We've introduced a new reporting system, and we've put a new sign-off procedure in place, which we're confident is having a positive impact on each of those areas. In terms of utilities, I do believe we are the leading operator across the industry, and our sites are working actively to improve the consumption management in each of our sites. In terms of thinking ahead, being proactive, we have energy action plans in place, which are generally viewed across the year, delivered month by month. We also have reactive energy action plans, which we review our consumption at the midpoint of each month, and depending on where we feel the trajectory is, what influence we can have on the immediate operation to improve the consumption during that period. We have a standard set of energy non-negotiables, which is what we have and apply across all of our sites across the entire group within Freedom. We conduct quarterly environmental audits, which are led by our environmental and sustainability lead across the group. We are conducting carbon literate courses, and each of our general managers and senior team within the Somerset area are all trained carbon literate, as well as the three of us here today. And over the last number of years, there's been significant capital investment into decarbonising the facilities. And I think what's evident and what you can see on the graphs here is that from an electric consumption perspective, that we either hold what we've done in previous years, or there's been an increase in electric consumption. Now that increase is because we no longer have gas in Goldenstones and Wincanton as a result of the decarbonisation programme, which, as you'll see on the graphs on the bottom left-hand side for those sites, there's been a significant reduction for gas, which has resulted in 124 tonnes of CO2 reduction year on year, which equates to 34%. I'm sure you'll agree is quite significant. And I think that just highlights really that we were nominated for 4 UK Energy Awards in 24-25, and Somerset itself was the Regional Energy Efficient Partnership of the Year for Freedom Leisure. In terms of compliance, 128 accidents, which is an increase marginally year on year, but actually with the footfall increasing of 17,000, I'd argue that that is a good representation of strong health and safety management and protocols at our site. We currently have area manager audits, which are internal audits performing above benchmark and an increase year on year, which suggests that things are heading in the right direction in terms of compliance and expectations. We had 82 planned activities over the last 12 months in terms of PPM, planned preventative maintenance, and all of which are complete and up to date. And final slide from the Freedom Leisure aspect or South Somerset aspect of the partnership is just where we are to date and how we're performing, just as a snapshot, but noting that we are only 6 months into the year. Secured £55,000 of the funding. We're already at that 12,000 mark of community footfall, in excess of 800,000 footfall through our leisure centres, which is a significant increase year on year already. 223 funded 12-week enhanced access programmes, 801 extra care footfall delivered across 6 houses, again, which is an increase year on year. Our new plan for this year suggests a footfall target of just over 14,200. We've increased our footfall through our exercise referral and enhanced access programmes, and when working with more partners than we have in previous years. Now, I'm happy to take questions now, or I can pass you to Ricky, who will cover Trinity in Bridgewater. I'm happy to be led by yourselves, councillors.
Councillor Wes Reed would like to ask a question now, I think, Wes?
Hey, lovely, thanks, Chair. Wes Reed, Yeovil West. Part of this Western Leisure Complex obviously sits in my patch, so I'm fairly familiar with it. I'm familiar with both Goldenstones as well. Now, I was asked by a resident a while back, why is the access and the security arrangements so different between Goldenstones and Westons? Primarily, I'll just explain that to me. I mean, she was asking, well, if you go into Goldenstones, it's a complex system because obviously you can walk off the street in effectively, you just go and buy a swim ticket and walk in through the same doors. But obviously you cover that as swimming, it's also part of the gym. But the gym's got a security access on it where you have to have a code, 4-digit code maybe, or the pass with a barcode on it may open that door because the gym's obviously sort of bolted to the back of the building, isn't it? It's totally different or was, and I don't know if you can clarify this, but obviously in Westlands, there's a staircase there and a lift. You can go through the top door into the gym just by opening the door. Anybody can walk in and out. Now, the only security that seems to be in there is a barcode reader from your membership card, but that relies on trust. How she's putting it is that the instructors who are there aren't necessarily manning that desk. There's no one manning the desk all the time. And if they're called away and they've got other issues with obviously other customers who want instruction on equipment, etc., she sees, well, is that not secure enough? And is there not been noticed or any security put on the door since, or what? That's one of the questions.
No, you're certainly right to raise that, and I think the timing of that question is uncanny. As only last month we introduced a scanning system. and that's currently being installed quite literally now. So what I will do is I'll check that has been or is being, and what the timings is around that. But I'll probably come through yourself just to confirm that, Dan, and Dan can respond to yourself, Councillor Reid.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got two questions online. And Sue again. Sue Osborne, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Always interesting to receive reports from Freedom, particularly as I was an ex-South Somerset District Councillor. And I do remember the sort of the timing issues and other issues, trying to get the leisure centre decarbonised, because we were lucky enough to receive a grant from the government. It was through Salix, but you had to complete the work before you could claim the grant, and that did lead to various problems. But we did get the grant, and actually it was one of those very rare occasions where you actually got a little bit more than you thought you were going to get. So there was good news in that respect. What I'm interested in is that you have, had complaints about water temperature. Presumably it's cold, and I can sympathise with that because me and cold water do not see eye to eye. But is that a possible trade-off from decarbonisation, that by taking gas out completely and going over to electricity, that maybe it's made your heating systems perhaps less efficient and more likely when it comes to getting pools to temperature, that people are going to notice that and they're going to complain if they're expecting a reasonable temperature swimming pool and it feels a bit more like outside temperatures. So was that a potential trade-off? That's my first question. And the second part is, you said that your electricity use had increased. Well, yeah, if you get rid of the gas, you will increase electricity. That's another trade-off. But how has that impacted your actual running costs? What impact has that had on your budget? Is your electricity purchased to make it even greener through a renewable energy contract? I don't know whether you've got solar or not, but if you haven't, is that something that you're going to be considering in the future? Is the solar and battery system? Thank you.
Okay, Matt, you happy to take these?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Councillor. So, yeah, fair questions. Certainly in terms of the PSTS, the timing of that, as you stated, was really interesting, because I think we won the contract as the PSTS funding was made available through Salix, through central government. So ideally it would have been built into our financials. That wasn't the case, purely because of the timing, but the offer was too good to turn down, and we're absolutely supportive. Lee's talked heavily about our environmental commitments, so we're really keen to have worked with the council and pleased to work with the council. It was quite a painful process, I have to say, at the time, and I don't think that probably helped with transitions of authority as well, which was obviously more complex, and a good changeover of colleagues within the council at that time. We are there now. There was initially a trade-off, I think it's fair to say, in terms of the temperatures of the pool hall, in terms of air and water. We think we're almost there now. There's still a few teething problems. We're working with council officers to make sure they're ironed out as much as possible. But there certainly was some understanding of how the air source heat pumps work within the system. So trade-off short term, I'd argue, but longer term, we're working through those, and it's getting better and better all the time. And this will be the first period this winter of really testing that system to make sure it can get to levels it should do. We're confident it will, but we just need to make sure we work with it. In terms of electricity, obviously, yeah, as you say, we're always going to use more electricity. The nature of the beast with the air source heat pumps. There is some PV in some of the locations, but not in all of those. There's opportunity to further enhance that with further PV over time, and add some further solar into that. In terms of the way the finances are working, we have an arrangement within our contract. So we have a benchmarking exercise on utilities, primarily directly linked with PSTS. We're actually working with Dan at the moment. It has been a hot topic for us in the last few weeks. So we've got a meeting hopefully coming up in the next few weeks to discuss and finalise that performance, because inevitably electricity has gone up. Electricity is more expensive. Having said that, we've locked in at reasonable rates. We're currently in a fixed term contract until the 31st of March for all of our centres, and we are buying green energy. Absolutely a commitment to continue along the green energy route, which is slightly more expensive in some cases, but it is absolutely the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Tom Power online, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I've got to be careful what I say because I'm a member of staff. But it's just regarding the timescales for the targets of the facility issues that you have. For example, as you said about the temperature of the water with the air source heat pumps. I think you touched on it lightly when you said that this season going into winter is going to be, the testing time. But when do you think that the target for when it's actually going to be fixed properly, when you actually understand what's actually going on wrong with it, that you can sort it out? Because obviously the previous presentation that we had, that we've noticed that everyone active can actually maintain their water temperature. So I think that'd be quite good to take some tips from them. And then also, I know that a certain members that come in have the phone scanning thing on their phone. I just wanted to know if that's going to be delivered cross-wide of all of our centres. Thank you.
Take the first question on the temperatures if I can, and then Lee maybe can answer about the scanning. I think the reality is we're working with the council. Probably a good time to remind this: the PSTS works for a council project. Whilst we worked and supported the council, it was a council run. Council were provided the funding directly. So we need to work with Dan and other officers to get to the bottom of any problems that we might have. So I don't want to sort of suggest that we're any further ahead than we might be, but there is lots of work that's happening to get to a conclusion, working with Dan and the consultants and contractors that were installed to PSTS works. But believe me, it's an absolute priority for us, because what we don't want is unhappy customers, especially going into winter month. But it is certainly a lot better than it was sort of this time last year.
Okay. I think is that Sue? Sue's back. Sue?
Yes, I'm back. God, you make me sound like sort of a Terminator, which I don't intend to be, not at all. One of the things that might help with the reports, and this is for all the leisure operators, is it's nice to know the good stuff, but also it would be helpful maybe to have sort of some trends data in terms of things like complaints and issues, so we can actually see that when they are raised, or you're getting a raise, that those are coming down, so we can see that the steps you're taking are actually effective. Similarly, with new programs, it's always helpful to see those increasing numbers, and what lessons are to be learned from the things that are working. That would be very helpful, I think, with these reports, just a little bit more sort of hard data in there, so we can actually see it evidences as to what is actually being delivered, and that you are delivering what it says in the tin, and also that when there are issues, that we can see that those are being tackled and they are being put right, obviously within a reasonable time scale.
Thanks, Sue. I think Dan's happy to answer that one, and then I'll come on to Andy Kendall.
Thanks, Chair. Just wanted to reassure members that we do have regular performance-based discussions with our operators. We have lots of information that flows in, more than we've seen in today's presentations, more detail per site, per month, per quarter. And so I do hold a lot of data, and I can share things with members if they would like to contact me. This data is also reviewed within our directorate performance board meetings on a monthly basis. So there's lots of opportunities to kind of scrutinise within the officer team that sort of level of detail.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, Chair, whether some of this should perhaps, it's your committee, I'm just the substitute for today, but I wonder perhaps whether scrutiny members could maybe see some of this, so they're getting a much deeper picture and a much and the opportunity of a deeper dive, you can actually sort of take the bonnet off and see for yourselves and suggest accordingly. I just feel that would sort of help. If necessary, you could always go into confidential to cover that if you are hitting commercially sensitive information, because it is a competitive sector. But I just feel that maybe some sort of more financial information in terms of, I guess, things like levels of management fees, what we're contributing, what the operator's contributing. So you get a feel to make sure that that balance is right. And also, as I say, that where there are complaints and issues and problems, and also bouquets as well, that there's also the positives, that we maybe sort of get a feel of that what's been written is actually evidenced by data.
Okay, thank you, Sue. I mean, that's a conversation I can have with Dan Webb and his colleagues about what is and what is not appropriate to bring before a scrutiny committee, either in private or public session. But thank you for those thoughts. It's well worth considering. Andy Kendall, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to lighten things, yes, you do go into just to confirm what Councillor Reid was saying, you do go into Westlands, and I went there for months before I realised I had to scan. But anyway, another story. The previous speaker spoke on maintenance, his down in Wellington. You haven't mentioned maintenance of your golden stones. How fast do you react to things, and how fast do they get fixed? There's a reason I asked that, but that's another story. There's rumours from people using golden stones that the sauna's coming in back into play. Can we confirm yes or no? A quick question. The carbon neutral you've touched on. However, when you look at the electric usage, especially when you look at, for instance, Westlands, it's covered with a solar array, and it's very, very low. But I know you have plans in the future, but how soon will these plans come to fruition? Because electric is still going up, and we have the technology now to combat the expense. It's a very quick question. And a topical question. There's a planning application for a new sports complex in Yeovil, a massive one. Do you foresee that being any threat to you? Or does it not worry you? It's a topical question. Thank you, Chair.
I'm not entirely sure the latter question is necessarily, but anyway, if Matt or Lee happy to do that, and then we'll move on to Wes, and then we'll ask Ricky to give his report.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kendall. In terms of timeline of repair, it gets reported as soon as it's seen, and then we actively work through immediately with our contractors. It can be varying times depending on availability of the contractor, but typically we'd like to see that done within 7 to 10 days. But it's a challenge at times, I must say. With reference to your request for Golden Stones sauna, the very short answer is no. That is just a rumour. It isn't something we're looking to repair and relaunch in the immediate future. And if I just refer to your final point before Matt picks up your solar question, we are aware of the private operator that's due to be operating within the facility, but to be honest, it's a different sector. They offer very different level of service. The cost is very different. Accessibility is very different. We're in the same sector, but we aren't, if you like. So no, we don't see that having a significant impact on our business whatsoever.
Matt?
Yeah, thank you. And then the other point was just around the solar. So yeah, I think, as I said, the solar is absolutely something that we'd like to work with the council on. If we can't work with the council, then there's various cooperatives we could work with. There was a slight issue, I think, with solar as an option on Goldenstone's roof. I'm not sure if that related to trees, whether that related to the structural ability of the roof, but I need to go back and look at the comments, or indeed Dan may have those through the council, although it would have been South Somerset, obviously, at that point. There would have been a reason it wasn't installed at that stage, so just to investigate exactly why, what our options might be. But we are working really closely with a lot of new suppliers that are coming onto the market. There seems to be more coming on every week. My LinkedIn profile gets regular updates from environmental contractors, but we're looking more at carports now as well as a way forward. So we've had some installed. Indeed, I know Everyone Active also had some installed at some of their sites. They're really successful, but they are more expensive because you've got the structural work that's related to them. But it does make it more achievable in terms of access, maintenance, and so on. And so there's lots of options out there. We just need to keep working and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible, but also by trying to get our actual electricity use within the site down. We've already gone through all LEDs have been replaced, but actually they could still be, there might be some more that we can, as technology advances, can we replace them again to drive down even further on our usage, and a whole range of things that we can make sure we're adopting. And as Lee referred to, our energy action plans will be about driving that use down as much as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. Wes, you wanted to come back briefly?
Lovely, thank you. Yes, Chair. On page 15, compliance, Lee, under accidents, obviously you did mention this, obviously, I remember. 120 accidents and then report. I mean, I take it that means that they were minor accidents, raised fingers or something, and that's why it's not recorded as zero, I suppose, is it not? You know, you appreciate you've had under 28, but none are bad enough to be hospitalised or whatever it might be.
Correct. Yeah, so typically it would refer to slips, trips, falls, cuts, grazes. All of that is reported in there to anything that's been reported to us that we've dealt with and supported. Within that, there was no riddle, so there was no serious incidents throughout the year.
Okay, thank you. Tom, I see your hand's up. Do you want to come back very briefly, please?
Yeah, it's only a very, very quick point. I just wanted to know, because obviously being the local councillor for Wincanton as well, a lot of my residents are asking, especially when they're coming up to the centre, if we are going to be introducing any electric parking charges at all in any of our parking spaces. And just to lighten the mood a little bit, we have a fantastic USP in Wincanton because we've got a movable floor, just to let members know. So for aquafit and swimming lessons, we have our swimming pool. We're going to go from 25 metres to 17 metres. So just to put a bit of positive news on that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any proposing electric charges?
Just to comment on that, I believe there already are in Chard, Goldenstones, and potentially Westlands already. With reference to Wincanton, it's not something that we're looking at present, but potentially through down we are.
Probably should add that I believe the car parks will probably be out of our demise anyway, so it'll be a council project rather than a Freedom Leisure project.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, well, we'll thank Lee for his presentation. Ricky, you're going to take us through the what's happening in the Bridgewater area, please.
Yeah, thanks. Just to introduce myself, I guess a little bit more. I've been working across the Bridgewater contract for 13 years. So initially brought on board to open the leisure facility, or help open the leisure facilities, the swimming pool in particular. Hopefully I can give you a bit more insight to that, because I'm mindful that in the past 1610, the previous operator perhaps didn't come to these forums because of the contract mechanisms in place. Just really the first proper slide, I guess, from me. I won't go into great detail because, in fairness, Lee has kind of covered this in his presentation, but we felt it important to include it, given that the values of the corporate organisation at Freedom sit at the heart of everything that we do, and we wanted to make sure that we showed that kind of consistency, really. So the numbers, I guess, for the Bridgewater sites, and for those of you that perhaps are less aware, we have two sites in Bridgewater, the larger site being Trinity Sports and Leisure, dual use site on the Chiltern Trinity School site, and then also a slightly smaller satellite site at the school at Robert Blake. And the numbers that are expressed here kind of cover both those sites. So total visitors over the 24-25 year, 175, almost 176,000. Our fitness membership live, 1,722, which is a rise on the previous year. And we continue to increase in terms of membership live into this financial year. We had just over 60,000 fitness visitors. Our Learn to Swim programme is currently sat at, or was currently sat at 1259, a slight decrease. not a huge decrease, and actually really just representative of the fact that we struggle to fit any more children into our programme at the moment. It sits at, most of the time sits anywhere between 90 and 100% occupancy. So to put more children into the Learn to Swim programme is a real challenge, much to do with the lack of swimming teachers in the industry at the moment. There's a real lack of swimming teachers nationally. Swim visits for sort of generic swimming sessions, just over 63,000. And we also run something called Love Sport, which is predominantly trampoline coached sessions. And we had 72 athletes coming along to those sessions. Again, probably scope to grow that, but for the fact that finding trampoline coaches is really, really challenging. And then in terms of actual Learn to Swim visits, although our membership live for swim has pretty much hovered around the same figure, we're seeing that we're getting better attendance into swimming lessons year on year. Likewise, total memberships put together, it shows sort of a year on year increase. Special population usage, we've got 207 members across the sites aged 65 and over. We have 3 fans members, slightly different terminology to the terminology that Lee used. We've not long sort of merged up into Freedom as an organisation, so some of the terminology that we use is slightly different, and we will gradually change that. But in essence, it's similar to the Flare programme that Lee described earlier. 67 of our members are on what we call Wellness Works, which is a self-referral programme, a bit like GP referral, but it doesn't rely on the usual mechanisms. Customers can come in and self-refer on that. Average age of members is 27, but that includes our Learn to Swim programme, and we have a really even split between female and male members. So moving into, as we stand, we are on 1739 members. Our Learn to Swim programme has kind of come back up now, so we're on 1285. Love Sport has shrunk a little bit. We have a huge amount of demand for that, and that's more just about the timing of when I captured those numbers. That number will come back up to 70, if not slightly more. And our total membership live sits at 3,090 members. In terms of compliance, when we merged up into Freedom, we went through the Freedom Health and Safety Audit process. So Robert Blake currently sits at 84% and Trinity Sports and Leisure at 89%. So both really good scores, particularly given that they're sitting about the same as what they did previously, but some of the audit standards had changed. The audit standard with Freedom was definitely higher than the previous organisation that we used. Accidents and incidents, no real noteworthy accidents or incidents. We've had no accidents or incidents that were reporting through to RIDDOR, and that hasn't been the case. You know, we haven't had to report any of those cases probably for the last 2 or 3 years. And then planned maintenance or preventive maintenance. The contract in Bridgewater was really unique. We, largely speaking, have a 0 repairing liability because there's another kind of building management company in place called BAM FM, and they typically look after the vast majority of the maintenance. We contribute towards that financially through the contract mechanisms, but I think it's probably fair to say that structure works really well, and I don't think you would walk around Trinity realizing that it's 13, 14 years old. The pool will have been open for 13 years in March of next year. So year-to-date performance, we're well ahead of target in terms of Fitness Live membership. Been really pleased with the growth in terms of Fitness Live. We're quite limited on stations, and again, given that the building was built 13 years ago, and because of one of the I guess drawbacks of the contract mechanisms is being able to make physical changes to the building, that sometimes the number of stations that we've got in the gym probably would benefit from having more stations, and we could grow the membership live, I think, probably more. And in fairness, a couple of years ago, I felt like we were probably getting to the ceiling height in terms of membership live and fitness. But in fairness, the performance has proved me wrong, and we've continued to grow year on year. Expenditure wise, we are a bit overspent. That's largely down to gym kit repairs. linked to the aging nature of the equipment that we've got in site, and I guess ultimately the gym at Trinity and Robert Blake at some point in the near future will need to have a significant rehaul. And then I just really wanted to cover some really nice kind of community stories, really, just to show just how connected we are to our community. I think that's a real strength for us. So we've got Emily. Emily is a young person who absolutely loves swimming, had a dream of becoming a swimming teacher. She attended another local leisure centre to complete her level 1 swimming teaching assistant qualification, but unfortunately she really struggled to pass that course. We were approached by Discovery, which is a Somerset-based charity who support people with learning disabilities, to see if we could support Emily. We took Emily on as a trainee swimming teacher, and I'm really pleased to say that in August she successfully completed and passed the level 1 swimming assistant qualification following the support that she had from the team at Trinity Sports and Leisure, and is now a really integral part of our team. And hopefully at some point in the future we'll move on to do her level 2 swimming teachers. Next one is our Christmas extravaganza, which was really led by our fitness manager. So in December of last year, the wellness team ran a member event, which was designed to really engage with our customers. The event allowed the team to really connect with the local community, and we also raised funds for Dorset and Somerset Air Ambulance. The event ran across one day, but resulted in 360 attendances to 8 Christmas-themed classes, and we raised £600 for the Dorset and Somerset Air Ambulance. Each year we do a really big event around World Book Week, where we align all of the swimming lessons to books. They're not just book themed; they actually follow the narrative of the book, and again, that just really brings swimming lessons to life, but also really ticks lots of really great boxes in terms of cross-curricular activity. So this year's books included things like Tiddler, the story of telling fish, Zog, the very hungry caterpillar, all sorts of different books. And I say they weren't just book themed; they actually followed the narrative of the book. And then as a picture, we had a sort of a book tree in reception to really get the children and parents involved. We have a huge following in terms of aquafit classes. Many of the attendees fall within that 65+ age group, and the consistency of the programme has really helped this user group to form new friendships and develop companionships. So I think, those classes have they're really valuable in terms of increasing activity, but also community cohesion. And then off the back of that kind of popular programme, we also ran an aquathon where we had 180 attendances in one day to various aqua classes. And again, we use that to kind of help raise funding for local charities. And then just a quick snapshot around club usage across the facilities. Our engagement with clubs across the Bridgewater sites is really strong, and that just really gives you a snapshot of the different clubs that use either Trinity or Robert Blake as their kind of home centre, or for additional facilities to really drive sports participation and sports performance. So anything from the local swimming club through to Bridgewater United Football Club, who use the facilities for some of their community engagement programmes. And that very quick whistle-tops tour, but brings us to an end for my presentation, other than if anyone would like to
Thank you very much.
ask questions.
I'd first like to ask Dan to just give us a very brief outline of our involvement with Freedom Leisure on these particular sites, because it's it's not the sort of normal contract. We're in a sort of interim arrangement at the moment. Can you just sort of give us a quick flavour of that, durations and things, and what movements are going to, shall we say, make arrangements here slightly more permanent?
Yeah, thank you. So we're actually only in the second month of the new short-term interim contract arrangement. Essentially, it's an extension of what was there before. So Ricky's talked about the previous organisation, 1610. So, Ricky was part of that organisation. So the team remains the same, and they will just carry on for that 18-month period. we decided to do that because we needed a bit more time to go back out to the market and run a full re-procurement process. So that started as a project. Just actually appointed a new member to my team with contract management experience who will be leading that and working with our procurement and commercial colleagues. So you'll hear more about that as things progress. When it gets to the right stage, we'll obviously seek an approval decision to go out and with that tender. So that will happen, and it will probably be a contract of approximately 9 or 10 years, which will bring us pretty much into line with the other existing contracts with Freedom in the South and Everyone Active in the West.
I think one of the issues this committee looked at 2, maybe even 3 years ago was the differing arrangements in the four different parts of the county and how it will be possible to harmonise them. So, and I think, existing arrangements, if they were set up for periods of time, clearly harmonising them and bringing them into line is tricky, but I think we seem to be making progress, which is good. Are there any questions? Kathy would like to talk. Question for Ricky.
Thank you. Just one question, and it's about the numbers of visitors and membership. So note the total visitors are getting on for 176,000 and membership sort of over 3,000. Do we have any breakdown about those figures of visitors mainly members who come lots of times, or people who aren't members that just come every now and again? Is there that breakdown, please?
Couldn't give you that breakdown here, but it's certainly something that if you wanted to delve into the detail, I can definitely pull off. The total visitors is definitely a combination of people that are paying for a membership and those that then come as sort of pay as you go. We absolutely kind of embrace both those aspects, and for things like swimming, if customers want to book in advance, they can book in advance, but they can also rock up and pay on the door as well. So those figures will kind of cover that. I think for the vast majority of our customers, off the top of my head, I would suggest that they have some form of membership because it works out economically cheaper, but there's definitely people that prefer to just pay as you go and not make that commitment.
Marcus?
Thank you, Chair. I was sort of saving my questions for the end, and now we've got to the end. So, yeah, it's a quick question on the growth actually as well, because obviously a lot's been made on both presentations about the growth of customers. Of course, I'm assuming we've got a growth in population and growth in the amount of chimney pots. Maybe not so much in Taunton, where some of the house building has been delayed for phosphates, but in other areas you keep seeing. I assume there's a population growth. So actually, I wonder then, well, actually, is that growth as a percentage actually better or not? So just, statistics, just wanted to make sure on that one. And also, the other question I've got was about, we talked about membership and growth, but of course, if you've got membership details, you know where those people live. I'd be interested to see what sort of, whether, I know 2 teenagers at the moment who drive all the way from West Somerset to go to Pure Gym. I think they're mental, but that's what they do. But that's quite a long journey. So I wonder what the journey times are people are taking. And actually, I must congratulate Ricky, because your timetable is very easily understood in an old-fashioned sort of way. But I will labour that point because it's that spontaneous swim thing. And sorry to labour that point, but I think that's a valid point as someone who's got a very, a moth-ridden swim bag in his car that hasn't come out of the boot for about 5 years. The other one was the times, because I noticed on one of your timetables it's sort of, you close at 4 o'clock on a Saturday and a Sunday, and I'm thinking, well, I thought that was quite a big leisure day. For those people who are lucky enough to work 9 till 5, Monday to Friday. And that did surprise me in an industry that, what I would class as a leisure and part of the leisure industry. I know lots of people do close on a Sunday evening, and rightly so, but I would have thought that's more of a general question around the contract, etc. Obviously, unlike previous speakers, I don't want to micromanage. We got officers and professional people who are more than capable of running their own leisure centres. Thank you, but that's more of a policy choice, I suppose. And finally, on one thing that I don't know whether just it was marketing with air source heat pumps, but nobody's mentioned ground source. So obviously all the issues that everyone's having with air source heat pumps would have maybe been solved if the temperature of the ground is always the temperature of the ground. And I always wonder why, and more of a generic question, why leisure centres using the amount of electricity and what they're using it for. I've never actually gone down that route. I'd love if someone could actually ever answer that question. But again, I'll leave it at that for the time being. I'm not really expecting an answer to the last question. It's more of a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the ground source heat was an interesting point because leisure centres are normally associated with a fair amount of ground around them, so it's not impossible. So who will be picking up?
Can I take the last one actually, because it's the one point I can answer, and I'll pass over to my colleagues. Although I can answer certainly the one on the Sunday. Air source, but as opposed to ground source, generally it's because of cost, and what you tend to find with new builds, they're going ground source. Whereas opposed to when you're retrofitting through the PSTS funding, it's far easier and cheaper to go with air source as opposed to the ground source. So that's fundamentally is cost and ease of fitting for all of existing facilities. But say if you was to build a new site, then generally you would go with a ground source option nowadays.
I'm quite happy to pick up the other questions. In terms of sort of growth of population, certainly for Bridgewater, huge number of houses going up. So yeah, I think, it's fair to say the population growth in Bridgewater is huge. Do I think that's reflects the growth in the centre? I'd probably, anecdotally only speaking, and I'd have to delve into the kind of statistics that sit behind that. But from experience, I would suggest not for us at Trinity. The centre opened in 2012. We haven't really been able to grow the space for membership with a huge amount of competition in Bridgewater. And certainly a couple of years ago, I felt like we were approaching the cap, as I said in my presentation, of how many members we could fit in, and yet we've surpassed that, I think. So I think that's probably a reflection of the service that we provide. Perhaps I look at that with rose tinted glasses because that's the way I want to see it. But that would be my genuine feel on that. In terms of geographics of users, we will regularly as an organisation look at that, so we can do heat mapping and we take away sort of postcodes and see where concentrations of people are coming from to use the leisure centres. That's absolutely part and parcel of sort of our marketing and strategic planning. And then touching on opening and closing times, certainly for the Bridgewater sites, we have opened sites later in the past. But if I'm honest, particularly on a Saturday, there tends to not be a huge demand to use the gym. We get quite a lot of use early and midday through Saturday. And typically we get a little bit more demand for later times on a Sunday as people start to sort of get back into the swing of wanting to go back, or maybe not wanting to go back to work, but going back to work on the Monday. So the times at the weekends are very much reflective of what the customer demands are.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got Sue online. If you could be brief, Sue, because we need to move on.
Yeah, I'm aware that you do. It must sort of feel quite strange managing a contract, sort of in a sort of what could be described as an interregnum. So, what impact does that have on any sort of investment or management decisions in that period? Because there's no guarantee that as to who's going to wind up having that 10-year contract. And how's that going to impact on maintenance, and how do you manage that period through and into transition? And the other thing is, you mentioned that the maintenance contract or some of the work is done by a separate company, BAM. So where are they going to fit into this process?
Matt, did you take that?
I'll take that one absolutely fine. No problems. A few questions there. I think to start with, we've probably worth clarifying that 1610 actually was already a previously wholly owned subsidiary of Freedom Leisure before the 2 months. So we've been involved with Ricky for 18 months, I think it is now, give or take. So there's actually that transition isn't a major issue. The short-term nature is always a frustration in some ways. It's great to have an extension, but it does mean that things like fitness kit does become harder to replace. But it's only those equipment items that would sit as our responsibility, because the BAM relationship is a PFI with the school and education, so they have the responsibility for maintenance of those facilities, and we have to pay a share of those maintenance costs. But that's as Ricky said, a good arrangement in terms of how you maintain a facility. Because of that arrangement, the facilities do look in very good condition.
Yeah, I think in terms of sort of transitioning from one arrangement to another, inevitably you have to have some sort of interim arrangements, which is what we're in at the moment, and it seems to have gone very smoothly so far. Sue, you've got your hand up again.
Yeah, it's just bearing in mind we need to move your desire to move on from this. My question that I wanted to ask at the end, that I put back to the end, was conspicuous by their absence, I guess, is Fusion Lifestyle, which manage leisure contracts in the East, and they don't have to account because it's a lease, and it's actually quite a big hole in our knowledge in terms of not just accountability, but how can we as a community scrutiny committee, I'm speaking as if I was a member, actually sort of be able to assess that the service that's being provided there is consistent and is in line with the standards that we're expecting our other leisure operators to offer, and they've demonstrated today. So how can that information be got over to a scrutiny committee? Because frankly, I don't think it's satisfactory that, okay, it's a lease, but on the other hand, we are the leaseholders and we must have put some standards in there, that there's no accountability here, certainly not to scrutiny. And certainly we've got no evidence that this contract is delivering the same value and to the same quality that everybody else is. So is there a way that we can have a report of some description from Fusion to satisfy me that what they're providing is the equivalent of what our other providers are doing? And who also are taking the time and the trouble to come to scrutiny to talk about their work.
Okay, thank you, Sue.
It's a deficiency and it concerns me, Chairman.
Dan, please.
Thank you. So going back to the beginning, you're quite right that there's no obligation for them to come to these types of committee meetings. What I will say, though, is that we have an active working partnership arrangement with Fusion Lifestyle now. I, for example, have an annual report similar to the sort of information that we've received from our partners here today. I don't think there's any issue with sharing that with members. They have invited myself and Councillor Smith-Roberts and Clark to visit their sites and facilities. So they are open for that type of communication and sharing information and working through issues, as they arise. So that is in place. I appreciate we probably do need to feed something a bit more into this report if we're looking at leisure in the round. So again, perhaps Councillor Wren, we can include that within our review of this and how we do this going forward. But I think that's probably as much as I need to say at the moment. It's a positive relationship. There is information. We do receive information on performance data as well, which we now feed into our internal officer reviews.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Yeah, I think we need to have a chat. If there is a report that we can be shared with members, I think that would be very helpful. Right, we do need to move on, but I wanted to thank everybody who's come and presented today for a lot of comprehensive information. It seems fairly clear to me that the arrangements we have in place with Freedom Leisure and everyone active are good and working well and very positive. So I think we got a few worries on that score. Thanking members present in the room and online for their questions, and we'll do this all again probably in another forum, another scrutiny committee this time next year with a bit of luck. But thank you all very much for your time and trouble, and get home safely. And we'll move on to the Octagon. Andrew, you've been waiting very patiently, and I must apologise to you for the overrunning on that item. And Sarah Scurton, when our guests have left, will lead us into this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to introduce myself, my name's Sarah Scurton. I'm the Service Director for Partnerships, Localities and Culture at Somerset Council. I'm actually sitting in for Chris Hall today, but the Octagon project is linked very much to our service area. So I understand that you would have received an update in, I would say August, is it, over the summer, on the Octagon project, and the request was to come back with a further update, which we have for you today. I have, obviously within the room, we have Andrew, who is the project programme manager for Somerset Council. We had hoped to have our colleagues from Focus, who are the external project managers. I think they've had to leave due to other commitments. But would want to welcome David Clark, who is the consultant who has been working on the outline business case for us. And I will bring him in when we get to that point in the presentation. Chair, if you're in agreement, we have a few slides and any questions that we have at the end between us with Andrew, with David and Dan when he comes back, because he's familiar with the project, we will endeavour to answer for you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I asked for this to come back relatively quickly was because clearly it is a flagship project for ourselves, but also particularly for the community and the Town Council of Yeovil. And I understand it's been going through their processes. And I just wanted to have the opportunity to assure members here and in our council that everything is on track as far as it's within our control.
Thank you, Chair. So what you have here on the slide in front of you, which you should have in your pack, I understand you've already had previously at the last update. However, it's there for reference. So just to move on from that, this slide now talks about everything that's in the scope of the current project on which the outline business case, more of which to come, is based. So I wasn't going to read through it line by line because I understand you've seen it before, but if there's anything, we can pick it up later. So I guess the key question is, where are we now? What is the project progress? We are currently at the end of the REBA Stage 3 design phase. This means that there's one more design phase before the on-site phase starts. The project is on track. We are working to Department of Culture, Media and Sport, ECMS's timetable. There are no delays in relation to that. The design that is agreed at the end of REBA 3 will be submitted as part of a planning application, which we're intending to put in November.
What, this month?
Yes,
Oh, right,
November now, isn't it? Sorry, it was October when it was prepared, and now we're in November.
Royal Institution of British Architects.
Chair, you mentioned that this is a joint initiative with Yeovil Town Council, very much so. They undertook some consultation over the summer. They asked two questions. They asked about whether the local residents would support borrowing to proceed with the project and borrowing 3.32 million. They were also asked whether, sorry, apologies. So in terms of the responses to that, the majority of the respondents did support the Town Council taking out a loan, but they also did not support the Town Council raising the precept to pay the loan back. So they were the two questions that they were required to ask as part of the Public Works Loan Board requirements. Yeovil Town Council resolved on the 1st of October to proceed with the loan, and to seek approval from the Secretary of State for Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to apply for the Public Works Loan Board of £3,325,000, borrowing term of 20 years towards the Octagon Theatre project, but also to explore the alternative funding sources to contribute towards the annual loan payments. And to report the findings to a future meeting of the Town Council to enable agreement on the funding structure. Andrew, I don't know, do we have a date for when they intend to do that?
No, there's no date at the moment. They've set up the Yeovil Town Council has set up a working group to work through the possible options for that funding.
Thank you. Any more points to raise there? A couple of neighbouring parishes have also agreed to contribute financially to the project. Somerset Council is dependent on the two key funding contributions, so that's the funding from Yeovil Town Council and the DCMS. We need to emphasise that the project is entirely dependent on securing that funding. The good news is that Yeovil Town Council have secured that support for the loan. They are reviewing their options and remain confident that they can identify a funding solution that works for them and their community. Further point just to add is a business case has been submitted, and in a minute I'll ask David to talk us through the key components of that. We're expecting to hear back from DCMS on the business case in December. The design project board, sorry, if you go to the next slide. The design project board has agreed the current design, which they did at 20th of October, and this forms the basis of the planning application. As a council, we continue to meet regularly with DCMS. They remain supportive, and we're currently discussing the procurement strategy with them. I'm going to bring David in now. David, if that's okay, are you happy to talk members through the outline business case?
Thank you, Sarah. Yes. Thank you, Chair. The business case to government, to Department of Culture, Media and Sport is clearly important because it is the means by which we secure continued approval from DCMS for their £10 million contribution to the project. Probably worth saying at the outset that this is an updating exercise with DCMS rather than a fresh grant approval process, because they have previously committed to the strategic benefit and importance of the project. What we're doing now is a process by which we keep them up to date with the emerging detail of the current scheme as Sarah just outlined it. We have submitted the outline business case in draft. It's about 270 pages of complex technical stuff, but I just wanted to touch on the key messages really. Members may be aware that there's a set format for these things in government, which refer to 5 cases in which we have to show the strategic case for investment, and the outline business case makes a very strong case for the importance of this project, as members have reiterated throughout, to both Yeovil and Somerset more generally. An economic case which itemises the economic, visitor economy and well-being benefits to participants that will flow from the completion of the work to the theatre. For those members who are familiar with these things, that comes down to what's called a benefit cost ratio calculation, where anything above 1 it is indicated to proceed, and our benefit cost ratio is currently 4.2, which is a very high score in government priority terms. We have a little bit of work that we want to do following comments by members at Project Board about a simpler description in picking up the comments that many people made to Yeovil Town Council's consultation that really describes how important this scheme is in human terms and how important the theatre has been to local communities, and we're just working on that now, and that may be helpful, Chair, to members going forward to have that summary. Next slide, please. The three other cases are technical cases. The commercial case essentially sets out to DCMS how we will appoint contractors to deliver this scheme and how you will control, as a council, the capital project going forward and deal with risks in it. And Dan and Andrew and the team have provided comprehensive documentation on that. And a management case, which essentially outlines your capital management processes. And Andrew and I can talk more about that. But it is essentially an assurance to DCMS that you are set up and ready to deliver this once they approve it. The final case is a financial case in which we assure DCMS that the project will not exceed its £15 million budget envelope, but that we do require and continue to require the full £10 million investment from them. And the second thing the financial case does is sets out in some detail the revenue forecasts for the operation of the theatre by Yeovil Town Council once the work is completed, and shows both long-term viability, improved trading and income, and reduced subsidy costs over those historic levels prior to closure of the theatre that were borne by South Somerset and Somerset Council. So by investing now, we save money long into the future over the next 20 to 25 years, which is obviously a key priority for all the partners involved. We submitted that outline business case in draft first and then in full 3 fortnights ago on time, and DCMS are progressing through their assessment of it. They have a key gateway tomorrow, so we're meeting with them tomorrow. At the moment, we've had very few and very straightforward queries back from them, all of which we've answered. So we are hopeful that this will go smoothly through their process to their investment subcommittee on the 18th of December, which we will attend, where we're confident that they will approve it for the next stage. That will take us into the next stage of technical development, as Sarah has outlined, and then we will make the full final business case submission next summer to DCMS, upon which they will make their formal approval to go to site and spend their £10 million. That's all I've got to say. Sarah, shall I hand back to you?
Thank you, Chair. So if we go into the next slide, it just outlines the next steps in the project. I have to say that this is a planned and not guaranteed timeline. There are a number of caveats, variables, etc. with a programme like this. We are dependent on some external processes from DCMS, the approval of the outline business case and the full business case. Also dependent on internal processes, the timescale, for example, for determining the planning application, and the key council decision to approve the business case and appoint the contractor. But you'll see from the next steps that the anticipated start date on site is currently the January 2027. The next point really is just around communication and engagement. And as mentioned, it is really key. We are working hand in glove with Yeovil Town Council. So our comms officers work with their comms team. All comms are jointly signed off. The next comms will be in November, when there'll be a press release to say that the planning application has been submitted. There's also plans to work with some key user groups of the theatre to take them through the details of the new plans. We will continue to feedback on consultations that we undertake, and the comms plan covers key milestones through 26, 27 and 28. Chair, that is all we were planning to update on today, but we're very happy to take questions, and I believe David is happy to stay on the line in case there are any on the business case that he's better
Okay.
placed to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't noticed any hands up yet, so I'll go first. I mean, I think the thing that troubles me is the time we've spent on it and the time that's left to go. I mean, if we're not going to start work for the 13 months or something, 13, 14 months, and we seem to be working or operating within a fixed budget. And I think we all know that costs, shall we say, tend to go up rather than down over a period of time. So I think I'm looking for some reassurance that we will have when we need it, we will have the money we actually do need. We will have the money we need to finish the job. And this is not quite a unique situation, but we have the council, Somerset Council, holding a framework, and it's actually down to third parties to put the jigsaw pieces in to complete the picture, which always makes me feel slightly nervous because I'm a bit of a control freak and I'd much rather be in control of stuff. But then, what does that say? We are where we are. So I think my main question, as well as expressing concern from the chair about stringing out of it, and the longer it goes on, the more nervous I'm going to get, is actually whether the works that will be required, bearing in mind that we're having this flight hour or whatever it is, to what extent are we going to be dependent on specialist contractors, or what we want to do or what isn't required, is that deliverable by general contractors? Because clearly the wider pool of contractors we have to bid for the work, the better the chance we have of coming within budget. Is that a sensible question?
Thank you, Chair. Shall I start and
Please, yes.
refer to colleagues?
So I don't like throwing a curveball, but it's just
No,
something that occurred to me.
Appreciate that. In terms of the phases of the project, we are on track and where we would expect to be. I'm looking to Andrew for confirmation of that. I am going to bring David in around the financials because my understanding is that the business case has to be really, really clear on that, the outline business case. So David, if you're happy to come in, if that's okay, Chair.
Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you, Sarah. The point is completely acknowledged, Chair, about the predicting future construction prices. That has been very much on our mind, given what's happened to construction industry prices over the last 3 years. Our approach to that at the moment has been, first of all, to make sure that our quantity surveyors, cost consultants, Betteridge and Milsom, are fully allowing for forecast construction industry inflation on a precautionary basis, i.e. a worst case basis within the £15 million. And secondly, and over above that, to retain quite generous contingency allowances within that £15 million, only releasing those at all as we proceed through the stages and we have increasing confidence from more detailed building surveys and a more detailed design. So as we sit at the end of our IBA3, a chunk of that £15 million is specifically allocated to cost increases and construction industry inflation, and generally available to cover changes to cost as we go forward. None of us could pretend that we have a crystal ball, so I think it will be fair also to say, and Andrew might want to comment, that we are also watching very closely the scheme as it develops, so that if we have to in order to bring it in on budget, make amendments to the work specification, we can at each stage end and in the contracting process with the contractor before we arrive at a final deliverable price, which must be within the £15 million budget. Your second point about contractors, we are having that discussion in detail at the moment, Chair, as our current view is that this scheme as distinct from previous potential schemes. This scheme would be almost all buildable by medium scale local and regional contractors. I think this scheme is simpler in construction terms and gives us a much wider pool of contractors to go to. There will be some specialist elements, and you rightly mentioned the theatrical equipment fit outs. I think it's likely, though we are just dealing with this at the moment, that we will potentially let that as a separate contract so that it doesn't limit the general contractors we can go to for the general building work, and we can then go to the specialist market specifically for those items which are more complex and specialist. So your question is absolutely about things which are at the forefront of our mind, and I hope that the approaches we're taking to those will give members some comfort that that we have the protections in place to ensure that this is deliverable.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, yes, it is reassuring. No doubt we'll talk about this again. I've got Marcus and Wes in the room, and I've got Marcus, Wes and Andy in the room, and then Sue Osborne online. Marcus, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think that your question is very well put, and obviously, history shows that at the moment costs do go up quite a lot. But I mean, for me, one, congratulations to Yeovil. Why am I getting an echo? Congratulations on Yeovil Town Council for stepping up to the mark. I think exactly the sort of thing town councils should be doing for a project such as this that is specific to, although it's specific to Yeovil, it doesn't take me that far long to get to Yeovil, and I'd much rather go to Yeovil than Bristol. To the theatre, mainly based on time, he says as a caveat to that. But no, I think again, congratulations to Yeovil Town Council. My concern, I mean, for me, you know, I missed scrutiny in the summer, must have done. For me, the one thing that's standing out in this is secure planning consent anticipated February 2026. I don't know if you're living in an alternative universe to everybody else who's put in a planning application recently, but that's only 3 months. Apologies, Chair. Apologies, I say to Chair Planning, but this is not in the West. I mean, that's just not going to happen. I'm not betting that. Well, I'm a betting man actually, but I'm quite happy to put a fiver down on the table if Simon Carswell will give me some odds to say that's not going to happen. And how does that play up with everything else? I mean, obviously, if it did happen, that'd be wonderful news. But I should think there'd be an awful lot of developers out there who'd be slightly annoyed if they got planning by February 26 when they've had applications waiting for months and months. And the other concern, only thing I have to say, what happens if the DCMS says no? And what is that situation? Does the whole thing grind to a halt, or what happens if the DCMS doesn't say no but says and then put some other things on? So I try to ask those questions.
Well, this plays into my point about us holding the framework and other parties having to put the pieces in. So I don't know who's best placed to answer. The planning, I guess, is a completely separate, independent process that is run by the council, and it will go through in the normal way if we have a normal way. So I don't think we're really in a position to say an awful lot about that. Andrew may have a little bit more on the planning. Certainly he would be able to tell us, or somebody will be able to tell us about the commitment or otherwise of DCMS, which is the crucial thing here.
Just in terms of planning, we met with the planning officer. We have continued to meet with the planning department over the last couple of months. We met with her yesterday or the day before. We are working on the basis now that it will go to February Planning Committee. It possibly may slip to March, but if it does, it does, and that doesn't have a material impact on the programme. But she was assuring us that there wouldn't be any longer delays than that. In terms of DCMS, we could, if DCMS obviously as we kind of said in the report, this project is dependent on all that funding. If DCMS decided to withdraw their 10 million, then I think the project would not proceed. But at the moment, DCMS are giving every indication that they are supportive of the case.
Thank you, Sarah. So you're waving at me. I just wonder who's submitting the planning application. Is it Somerset Council? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. So yeah, as Andrew says, the DCMS grant is fundamental. However, the relationship is strong and ongoing, and I believe that David may wish to come in on that point. Is that okay, David, to bring you in?
David, are you happy to give us assurance as to how things are going?
Just to add that I think there was a key moment, Chair, when shortly after the change of government, when DCMS was asked to recommit to this scheme and took, as it did, all of the regeneration capital decisions that it was in the middle of to its new ministers. And ministers very much affirmed that they wanted this scheme to go forward. So I think that was a key moment. DCMS had an opportunity to step back and they stepped forward. And pursuant to that, they actually transferred their £10 million as a grant to the Arts Council, to Arts Council England, who will be the grant managers for the process. And Arts Council England are holding that £10 million. And that, I think, as a project team, has given us some reassurance, not least because Arts Council England are a big supporter of the work that yourselves as a council and Adam Bergen as Sarah's service lead has been doing, and the Arts Council are fully involved in the project. So I don't want to get ahead of myself and say that DCMS is completely predictable and straightforward. But I think there are some assurances which we've been able to put in place over the last year or so. And the relationship with DCMS at the minute is very cordial. You know, they're saying things like, "Oh, we're in a good place on this. We don't have many comments." So I think as far as we can, we have de-risked that process.
Of course, the key point is for us to hold up our side of the bargain. And continue to make progress as anticipated by them to maintain their assurance and their confidence. Thank you, David. I've got Wes Reed and then Andy Kendall, please.
Thank you, Chair. Going back to your question about the finance, I'm sure Amanda Carter's our town clerk and her assistant finance officer, Jackie Pang, have gone to great lengths with Somerset Council into making sure, and they're quite aware, obviously, of the contingency, of the tolerance. This has got to be built for 15 million. We've been led to believe, obviously, there will be cutbacks if it cannot be, but if it goes ahead, there'll be decor maybe changes or whatever, but there will be some sort of changes, but it must be built inside that parameter. We can't go back to the public and ask for another several million. We can't go and find another loan for several million. So we are where we are. And I have every confidence that really it can be done at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I think we're all buoyed up by what we're hearing at the moment, that there are no storm warnings obviously on the horizon, so we'll just keep on plugging away. Andy Kendall, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm probably going to repeat what a lot of people said, but your first question about the finance, this question was asked many months ago, and the answer I got was a 20% contingency has been built in. So whether that's changed, I don't know, but that's in a live meeting. Thank you very much. I don't see nothing mentioned about the carbon management of this project plan, whether there's going to be any solar or anything like that. I won't go into that. The question I want an answer on is why are all the monthly meetings updating the councillors about the Octagon being cancelled the last few months? And another quick question is, in the report, it says the planning application is going to be submitted in November. I don't know if you know, but we're in November now. Could we just have an answer, yes or no, if it's been submitted? So the very simple questions to me.
It's not been submitted yet. It's planning to be submitted on the 21st of November.
Okay, and are the
Sorry?
the councillor briefings councillor briefings seem to be cancelled. Any particular reason for that?
The reason for cancelling them was lack of attendance, if I'm honest. We were getting single figure, I don't know if Dan wants to add anything, but we were getting very low attendance, so we kind of replaced them with a written update, but it's something we can look at if councillors would find them useful.
I think the issue of low attendance at council briefings is not unusual, and I can understand the frustration from that. As a councillor who doesn't always attend every briefing myself, and I'm sure we're all quite busy, so it's a question of coming up with a communication medium that works for everybody and provides, does the job. Dan, you wanted to work?
Yeah, just coming back on that member briefing point, Rick. So I was involved at the early stages of this new iteration of the project when we had a dedicated project director in place. And what we set up at the time were monthly member drop-in sessions. And that was way before we were in a position where we had a kind of project structure that we have now, with all the various consultants and external team running the project in place. So it was kind of in the early forming stage of the new project when those drop-in sessions were set up. So I don't think the intention actually was to continue with regular monthly member briefings. I think now that there is a routine that we've sort of slotted into with the board and updates and visits to scrutiny, I think that's kind of superseded that arrangement.
Certainly, I would. I think this committee needs to have sort of regular reports, and if we come back in February or March, as and when the planning process is nearing its climax, I think that might be quite useful, even if it's only for a 10-minute or quarter of an hour update to make sure that we're still going ahead with things. Okay, thanks for that. Andy?
Just one more statement I want to make, Chair, while we're here. When there was a briefing at the Octagon for the people, I actually asked a question, which is what Marcus has asked really. What is the risk if you don't get this £10 million grant from the Arts Council? And Alan gave quite a comprehensive answer, as in, we've got nothing to worry about. I'm not convinced it's in the pipeline. I can't be convinced in the pipeline. I'm still asking on behalf of Marcus as well, what is the risk if it does fall through? But I think you've kindly answered that anyway, Andrew, that if it falls through, it falls through. And what is your prediction of the future then?
I think it has been said that the whole project is utterly dependent on the 10 million from the DCMS. And all we can do is go upon the assurances that we've received from the department and the Arts Council that they're fully behind this project. I mean, and until that changes, I don't think there's not an awful lot we can say. But if you've got a risk register, this has to be down as a risk. At the moment, we're presumably regarding it as relatively low risk. And it occurs to me that whether it gets an increasing risk to an extent depends on us and how the final design processes go forward, how the planning system pans out. I think Yeovil Town Council have moved to secure their end of the funding, so that is less of a risk down. And so, in a way, it's all about moving the whole thing, shuffling forward. And it is a bit of a shuffle, but it's the nature of these things.
Okay, Chair, I do agree with you. And we're talking this, we're in a financial emergency at the moment. If F114 is served and commissioners come in, I think that's where my question was going. What would happen? I think I was given the answer by Alan that whether they come in or not, it will still go ahead because et cetera, from the Arts Council. But I'm just sharing the questions, knowledge I've asked in another meeting, that's all.
Well, my understanding is if any of the financial components fall over, that's game over. I mean, because the Yeovil 3 million is 20% of it, and the DCMS is 66% of it. Either of those come out for whatever reason, and as I say, all we can do is work on the assurance we've been given so far. But they would be. I mean, Andrew may contradict me, but it seems to me that they'd be deal breakers. That's game over, and we'd have to go back to square one or whatever. I've got Liz Lation, who may wish to add a little bit, and then I'll come on to Sue Osborne, who's been very patient.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think we have said at at the Octagon project boards where those meetings have not been cancelled and have been well attended, and that is one of the partnership boards of Somerset Council. 6 Somerset councillors and 6 Yeovil town councillors sit on there. The Arts Council is represented by the lead for the capital programme of the entire Southwest, and all of the project team were present in person at the last meeting, which was at Brimpton Way, and was a very full meeting and gave us all, including me with my theatre experience, a chance to ask some really good questions. I hope they were good questions about the build and about the fit out, and about whether that specialist fit out sits within the main programme or not, whether it sits within the main contract or whether that would be completed as fit out later. I would suggest from what I've heard today that there could be the main contract, there could be then specialist fit out coming in later, and there could be items that would be purchased subject to whatever contingency has or hasn't been drawn on. There would be items like lanterns that could be purchased direct from suppliers, and that wouldn't need to go through a contractor. So I think the point I'm trying to make, Chair, is that these are complex projects, they're complex builds, but this is Plan B that we're on now. It is considerably more straightforward in my view than Plan A was, as well as with obviously, as you know, a much lower budget. There is no Plan C, is the point that we made. We are not working with a Plan C in the background. I just wanted to make the point, if I may, Chair, that your opening point about being more nervous as it goes on longer, I would implore you to be more nervous if it was going too quickly, because there are proper processes to go through with funders. The Arts Council are incredibly diligent. Don't forget that the Arts Council took all of the National Lottery funding programme through in the 1990s and 2000s. They have remarkable amount of experience on these capital programmes. They know what it is to build theatres from scratch. They know what it is to do refurbishments. And this is something in between. It's between a new build and a refurbishment. It's considerably more than a refurbishment. And the installation of the counterweight system that will make use of the fly tower, there are theatre specialists who do nothing else but those installations and then the annual maintenance, and all of those things are all being undertaken. And if I may say, Chair, I'm so glad that we still have David Clark working on this project. It's really good to have Andrew as project manager as well. At the last project board meeting, I had no anxieties from what was presented to us, and I know what it is to worry on theatre projects. They are demanding, and when you're working with a building that's already in place, you're working with the foundations you've already got or underpinning. So we do need all of those specialisms. I believe we have them well represented. So I hope, Chair, if I can do anything, I can give you some reassurance that we have asked those questions in considerable detail on the Octagon Project Board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz. I think, I mean, I don't have a problem with the length of project or the steps that have to go through. I think that's wholly appropriate, and it's taking us through to 27. I think my nervousness is about inflation nibbling away at our budget, and that's something that's largely out of our control. But it's something we do need to keep an eye on. But thank you for that intervention. Sue Osborne, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think as time went on, quite a few of my questions, concerns were answered, particularly the issue you raised of slippage. Will it still be deliverable within that 15 million envelope? if inflation sort of rears its head and starts to nibble away at everything, or we see scarcities of materials and supply and demand pushing prices up even further. So how are we going to stick within that budget? And clearly there will be certain cutbacks if that's going to happen. You've covered as well the DCMS grant. I think both yourself and Marcus have raised that. What happens? I just wanted some clarity over the position with the Public Work Loan Board that Yeovil Town Council were proposing to take out, but that they had the vote against, where people were in principle for retaining the Octagon and reopening it. But when push came to shove and they were asked, the question is, would you be prepared to see an increase in your precept? And the response that came back was, actually, no, we wouldn't. Is where does that leave you with the Public Works Loan Board? I know you've agreed to proceed with...
Sue, the arrangement between the Public Works Loan Board is with Yeovil Town Council, not with us. I mean, it's they were charged with coming up with the finances to put up their end of the deal, and that's how they've gone about it. I mean, it's not really for us to discuss that, I don't think here. I've got Sarah, I've got Councillor Graham Oates online as well. I'll go for Sarah first and then Graham.
Just to clarify, and Councillor Oakes will obviously add to that, the Yeovil Town Council have agreed to take out the loan. It's the way in which that loan is funded. Thank you.
Graham?
Yeah, that's what I was...
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the Town Council won the vote. It was interesting and challenging, and I'd like to thank the Public Work Loan Board for making us ask questions that could put us in a position where we can borrow money, but then have to figure out how to pay it back. However, the situation that a lot of people were unhappy with during the consultation was the fact that the Town Council covers 2/3 of the area of Yeovil, and the other two big parishes, Brimpton and Yeovil Without, apparently people there were not going to be contributing. Well, that situation has changed, and both those councils are now contributing, and we're confident that others will. So I can reassure the committee that what will happen is that Yeovil Town Council will shortly agree how it's going to do the repayments in such a way that is good for the council taxpayers, but ensures this incredibly important project goes ahead. We're in a very strong position. The original precept rise would have been 3.3%, and we aim, if there is to be any element of the council tax to go up, which we're seeking to avoid, will be much less. So we're certainly in a very strong position, but there's so much has changed since the public consultation, so many positive things. We're still hopeful that some councils, other councils, are also going to be agreeing to contribute. It's becoming far more of a community project than just a Yeovil Town project, and that's got to be welcomed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Thank you, Graham. Right, I think we've
that's good news.
Talked this through. Are there any other questions? If not, I think thanking everybody for the update as to where we are. Thank you to David, thank you to Andrew, and thank you to Sarah. It's clear that, as I say, it's certainly a flagship project for Somerset, and all the parties seem to be working together very well. We have a plan. I mean, it's not without its challenges, of course, but what I would like to do is bring it back for another review in around about the planning permission time, if we can, sometime in February or March, so that we can keep an eye on how everything's progressing. But in the meantime, thank you all very much for your questions, and we will move on to the final item. And with apologies to Sam Astill and Mike Motum from the Heritage Trust for patiently waiting, and you're going to give us a talk. You're going to present your annual outcomes report. Dan, do you want to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. So just to very briefly introduce this next update from another partner organisation, so this time the South West Heritage Trust. It's a bit of a different arrangement to the leisure contracts that we heard about earlier. So delighted again to be accompanied by Sam Astle, the Chief Executive, who will present an overview of the Trust's activities and key points from the annual outcomes report that has already been shared with the committee. Sam's also accompanied by Mike Motum, who is the Chair of the Trust. Now, the Council has benefited from this partnership arrangement since 2014, and only last November a new 20-year funding agreement was entered into. So on that note, I'll probably hand over to you, Sam, because I know you haven't been to committee, I think, for a little while, so maybe there'll be an element of a recap on what the Trust delivers in terms of services as well as how they're getting on.
Thank you, Sam.
Mike, please.
There we go. Fine. Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm Sam Astle, Chief Executive of the South West Heritage Trust. I'm really pleased to be here to update the committee on our recent work, and I'm joined, as Dan has said, by the Trust Chair, Mike Motum. I've now been in post for around 2 years, taking over from the previous CEO, Tom Maybury, on the 1st of January 2024. And before this, I worked for the Trust as Head of Museums and Engagement and in a variety of curatorial roles. So firstly, some background to the organisation. The Trust was formed in 2014 as an independent charity and company limited by guarantee. We manage heritage services on behalf of our partners and principal funders, Somerset Council and Devon County Council. We run down the Museum of Somerset in Taunton, the Somerset Rural Life Museum in Glastonbury, and the Somerset Brick and Tile Museum in Bridgewater. And we care for over 3 million objects, museum objects, ranging from outstanding geology to archaeology to textiles and fine art. We hold the major written record and evidence for the history of both Somerset and Devon, and our archive and local studies services have centres in Taunton at the Somerset Heritage Centre, Exeter and Barnstaple, where we care for 10 million archives dating from the 8th century to the present day, and more than 350,000 printed reference works about Somerset and Devon are also held in these local studies collections. Our historic environment and estate service supports local authorities, partners and the public by offering statutory planning related advice and information on Somerset's archaeology and built heritage, again on behalf of Somerset Council. This service is also responsible for over 400 acres of iconic council-owned historic landscapes, including Cothleston Hill on the Quantocks and Deerleap and Blackmore Reserve on the Mendips. We work in partnership with a range of other local authorities through a series of contracts, providing archaeology planning advice to Bath and North East Somerset Council and heritage services to North Somerset Council. We also support the operation of Western Museum and manage Torbay Council's archival collections. The Trust became an Arts Council England National Portfolio Organisation, NPO, in 2022, and we are also a recipient of museums and schools funding from the Arts Council. Annually, the Trust receives over £250,000 from ACE. We're enormously proud to be recognised as one of the county's NPOs alongside the Octagon Theatre, Take Art, Somerset Artworks and East Quay, each contributing powerfully to Somerset's creative and cultural landscape. This is just a brief version of all that we do, but I hope you can see that we are a diverse and complex organisation. I'm pleased to report that the organisation, the Trust, is in good health. Our principal local authority funders have maintained a strong financial commitment to our work, and we are fortunate that both authorities believe in heritage and are prepared to invest in its future. On the 20th of December last year, Somerset Council signed a 20-year funding agreement with the Trust. This was a landmark moment, providing long-term stability in a volatile funding landscape and a powerful endorsement of our joint partnership and a foundation for the future. We are, of course, enormously grateful for this support and remain fully committed to ensuring a strong return on investment. This support has been supplemented by the generosity of town councils who have also recognised the value of heritage and culture. Bridgewater Town Council Taunton Town Council and Glastonbury Town Council have all provided financial support to the Trust and its museum sites in the last year. Again, something which we're enormously grateful for. On behalf of Somerset Council, last year we led the unparalleled acquisition of the Chew Valley Hoard, 2,584 silver coins from the Norman Conquest, valued at £4.3 million. It's the highest valued treasure acquisition on record, and this, as I'm sure you may recall, was a major national story, and we now work to gain the final funding to make the most of this opportunity through displays, exhibitions and programming. Our exhibitions last year were ambitious, inclusive and diverse, and one of the real highlights, sorry Dan, can you move the slide on? One of the highlights was Chance Encounters, the art of Rachel Reckitt, a major retrospective celebrating a remarkable Somerset modernist, and it brought together important loans from public and private collections and received exceptional feedback from the public. We also hosted the largest ever exhibition of Doctor Who art, welcomed this painting, John Martin's destruction of Pompeii and Herculaneum from Tate, and marked the Monmouth Rebellion with a nationally significant loan from Manchester Art Gallery. And it's been particularly pleasing to see the Trust maintain its increases on pre-pandemic visitor levels, and last year the Royal Life Museum received its highest number of visitors on record since it reopened following a redevelopment in 2017. Our Historic Environment Service continues to ensure that the historic landscape is appropriately protected while developing our new growing site, Avalon Archaeology, on the Somerset Levels, created almost entirely by volunteers working alongside our expert team. And it's been pleasing to see, again, in the year we've just left, volunteer hours increase in the year under review. Our public programme reached new heights, including Viking Yule storytelling here at Avalon Archaeology. And last year, the Trust overall welcomes over 48,000 people to events, up more than a third on the previous year, a huge vote of confidence from our communities. Our digital footprint continues to grow, nearly 3 million visits to our websites last year, triple the figure from 2 years ago almost. And it's a reminder that our reach extends far beyond our public sites and that digital access is now core to our mission. A standout achievement was the launch of the Exmoor Oral History website in March. It's a beautifully curated platform that brings regional voices to life and makes our collections more accessible than ever before. And this is what digital heritage should be: open, engaging and rooted in place. Our learning service continues to deliver high quality inclusive education, and from hospitals to heritage sites, we've reached over 13,500 pupils, many of those pupils from high pupil premium schools, thanks to bursaries and a targeted offer, a major achievement for a charity operating in a rural county. This year, our ACE-funded MPO programme supported everything from early years programming to SEND workshops to digital access and artist-led learning, and it enabled us also to refresh our family offer, expand our reach and deliver exhibitions and activities that are both ambitious and accessible. And here's just one more down, please. And here's just one example, creative activities in a pop-up museum in Bridgewater, delivered in partnership with cultural organisations in the town and housed in a disused shop. And here's another parallel example of our work with real impact, artwork created by young people undergoing treatment at Musgrove Park Hospital. This initiative is part of an expanding programme with the NHS that places creativity, well-being and personal expression at its heart, demonstrating the transformative role heritage and the arts can play in healthcare settings. As previously mentioned, we have taken on new responsibilities and developed new relationships, and we are now helping to manage the South Somerset Heritage Collection in Yeovil, working in close collaboration with Yeovil Town Council through a partnership project. And importantly, we are generating revenue through our joint identity as a charity and as a heritage business, and have been adept in navigating an unpredictable and demanding economic environment. In January of last year, this year we welcomed Dylan Edgar as Head of Development and Partnerships. This is a new role designed to help unlock potential and help the Trust thrive financially. And this image shows the new welcome space and shop we plan to install at the Museum of Somerset, linked to the Chew Valley Hoard project, something that will help us generate key commercial revenue at that site. I could go on, but I certainly feel proud that the Trust is delivering impactful work that's making a difference to people, to communities and to heritage. And there is much to be optimistic about as we begin to define the next 5 years. A major recent focus has been the creation of our new 5-year strategy. And I wanted to share briefly some reflections on the past and ideas that feature in our new revised document. Our charitable objectives, which are pictured here on screen, you'll see give us a wide mandate, and we found it useful to reflect on the scope of the Trust remit, and in particular the final section here, which gives the charity a broad civic focus. It's also important to recognise and acknowledge that the previous strategy enabled the Trust to retain a focus on core heritage activities, the things that you, our principal funders, and the public expect from us, such as acquiring and displaying important heritage objects like the Cheddar brooch. And this commitment should always be maintained. And here, just very briefly, some of my perspectives on the new strategy, Building for the Future, recently approved by the Board of Trustees. Firstly, there's been a strong focus on vision and mission. In refining our vision and mission, we have reduced overlap and elevated the purpose and impact of our work. For example, Darren Henley, Arts Council's Chief Exec, emphasises that ACE is there to make people's lives happier, and that's his organisation's key purpose. And we've asked ourselves, what's the Trust here to achieve? What's our unique impact? And what's the change we are trying to make? And how can we become an outcomes-focused charity? So here's our new vision statement that succinctly defines our combined focus on heritage as well as civic impact. Defining our organisational culture and behaviours has been another important theme, and what you see here reflects the Trust core values and our collective commitment to how we seek to work, principles chosen democratically by staff across the organisation. And just a few examples of the kind of differences that we want to make. And there's a slide for each of these, Dan. So older adults, engaging older people in care homes and community spaces to demonstrably improve well-being. Youth, supporting young people at the start of their careers to take their first successful step into employment. Children, nurturing a generation of children in our venues by boosting curriculum outcomes and increasing, importantly, cultural capital. And heritage impact, a commitment to telling important Somerset stories through collections like this remarkable self-portrait of the Somerset artist Sarah Biffin, acquired last year in the year under review. She was born in October 1784 in East Quantock's Head, Somerset, and the baptism register records that Sarah was born without arms or legs, a rare condition now known as phocomelia, and she later learnt to paint using her mouth. And this self-portrait, painted by Biffin at the height of her powers, is a key text in the history of disability and is now on display at the Museum of Somerset following acquisition by the Trust, again on behalf of Somerset Council. New slide, Dan, please. And here are the strategic outcomes we'll use to deliver our strategic mission. We're committed to becoming a more outcomes-focused organisation with a continuing and equitable dedication to heritage, to people and communities. And alongside this, we have strengthened our commitment to organisational sustainability through a new focus on building a thriving Trust. Last year, our board approved a new strategic focus on this and a focus on developing our identity as a charity and as a heritage business. And our revised strategy captures this energy and asserts our commitment to an enterprising culture that values financial sustainability as a central aim. There is much of this happening already, but now is the opportunity to confirm and formalise our commitment to becoming a more financially confident organisation. We need to own our own future in an uncertain and unpredictable world. Well, what does this mean? Well, practically, we want to make effective, data-driven business decisions, and culturally, we want to create an organisation where everyone cares about money and views the generation of income as part of their role. New slide, Dan, please. Our strategy reflects the unique nature of our communities and those that we serve in the South West, addressing rural challenges, transport and health inequalities, and the difficulties faced by young people entering the workforce. And this gives the strategy character and roots. Connecting our work to the wider concerns of the places we support is essential to our relevance. We want to be an organisation that cares about the future as much as the past. New slide. The strategy also defines our commitment to increasing our profile, recently characterised by publicity associated with the Chew Valley Hoard. And to grow, the Trust will need to form new relationships, create new projects and generate additional impacts. I want us to initiate connections beyond heritage with other charities, housing associations and the healthcare providers. And we know that communicating impact effectively will strengthen stakeholder trust and attract funding and support, ensuring our long-term success. And this new strategy, of course, will underpin a really important moment for the Trust as we confidently seek to grow. Nearly there now, Dan. So we take inspiration from places like this, the Black Country Living Museum, places that have found the sweet spot between their identity of charity, heritage and enterprise. But at the same time, we remain fundamentally connected to our local authority partners whose support and collaboration continue to underpin our work. Finally, I want to offer a heartfelt thanks to Somerset Council, both officers and elected members, for your steadfast support and valued partnership. You are the foundation of everything we are able to achieve, and your commitment to heritage continues to make a profound difference to the people of Somerset. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sam. That was a very comprehensive run through everything that you do. I mean, from memory, I think the Trust was born out of necessity because of the County Council. I think we're looking critically at whether to continue with heritage services about 10 or 12 years ago, and the Trust was a direct consequence of that. And I think it's a testament to you and your colleagues over the years that actually you've really grown much more outside the council remit than perhaps would otherwise have been. And it's certainly from what you're saying in terms of getting in extra income. You've expanded into Devon, which is presumably a collaboration with their Heritage Trust. But I mean, the breadth of the work that you're covering is extraordinary, and it is very much to be commended. Members, are there any questions? Wes Reed, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just explain the connection between yourselves and Yeovil? Because our Heritage Trust there, for example, it's had to move out some years ago from where it was.
Yeah.
We lost that, and one of my great things, I'm champion for all the time, is we want it back in Yeovil, in the centre of Yeovil. So it could be, walk in, walk out museum as such, and it's now at the moment in a lock-up in a trading state.
Yeah,
which isn't ideal.
Thank you very much. So the South Somerset Heritage Collection is an accredited museum. It was formerly run by the South Somerset District Council, and then when the new unitary council was created, the collection became the property of Somerset Council. The responsibility for South Somerset Heritage Collection now rests with Yeovil Town Council, but the South West Heritage Trust is supporting Yeovil Town Council in the operation, the running of the collection. We're supporting their work around accreditation, which is a museum standard, nationally recognised, and seeking further ways of that collection being used, utilised, seen and enjoyed by the people of Yeovil. Clearly plans, I recognise that there are plans and discussions and a desire for a more permanent home for that collection in the town centre, and of course we will follow the town council's direction and work with Somerset Council should those proposals and ideas take a fuller form in due course. But our contract at the moment is very much configured around supporting Yeovil Town Council in the proper management of that collection.
Marcus.
Thank you. I'm still, very interesting. You had me gripped, and I like to think of myself as a bit of an uncultured job at times, but I was positively gripped by your presentation. There was a question, I suppose, it was quite interesting to look at your museums, because obviously, a bit of again, being a bit parochial here, but I'm from the real west of Somerset, West Somerset, and obviously, Watchett's famous for having its little museum, and Minehead's famous for having its little museum. I wonder, and I noticed there was a gap there when you looked at funders and Minor Town Council wasn't on there, which is just something I noted. But you also mentioned East Quay and then arts, and I was just trying to get my head round. You sort of whipped through it and thinking, well, how do you then work with the art side of things as well? Yeah. And I thought that was quite interesting, but I was just wondering if you could expand on it a little bit more.
Yeah, of course. I'd be happy to do that. In terms of community museums, we host at the South West Heritage Trust the role of Museum Development Officer. That's part of a regional team, and our MDO supports community museums across Somerset around, again, the best management of their collections, business planning, accreditation. So our role is supports the wider sector in Somerset. We have an MOU with the Onion Collective and with East Quay, and we've worked in collaboration with them over the years on joint exhibitions and programming, and we meet with them regularly to find ways of collaborating. Again, we have a strong relationship with Somerset Artworks as well, another NPO in Somerset. And we're always looking at ways increasingly to ensure that collections, exhibitions, opportunities can be enjoyed by people across the county in different settings. One example of that we hope in the future will be taking the current Hope Born exhibition, which is at the Rural Life Museum, up to Exmoor so it can be seen by very rural audiences. So we're always looking at ways of taking our collections on tour, finding ways of our collections being seen in a whole variety of settings, and particularly rural settings. And of course, we're always looking for new partners in doing that. So we're very committed to sort of a peripatetic approach.
And if I can add just one thing to that, Sam, the Arts Council England South West placed a responsibility on each of their MPOs to work with one another. And so we, the Board of Trustees, are under the cosh from Arts Council England to get on and work with other MPOs in Somerset. And so, yeah, we jolly well do it because we want our relationship to extend and we want everything in Somerset to be as fulfilling as it can be.
I can, mate. I was going to ask you what might be regarded as an awkward question. How well do you think the Heritage Trust is known across Somerset, for example? And actually, whether the trust is known or not, is that an important thing, or is it far more important to be seen for the things that you do?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and I think many of our audiences identified primarily with the sites that they probably connected to the most. So audiences in Taunton, do you know the Museum of Somerset? Well, I hope to think that many of them would answer yes to that question. Who runs the Museum of Somerset? Could be the council, or it could be the South West Heritage Trust perhaps, but we certainly want our brand, we want our identity to be more fully known in the future, and particularly by funders, other stakeholders, other charities, potential partners, and we see that an important step in our evolution, that our brand becomes more prominent, and people understand who we are and what we do more fully.
I mean, it's an interesting question because it's not obviously an organisation that is well known, but what you do very much is. I mean, I was told Bob Croft came to our Civic Society a few weeks ago and was telling us about the Langport excavation, which was opened for one day and had 1,000 people, was it?
Yeah, I mean,
and that was just advertised on social media, and they were queuing around. Well, not around the block. They were queuing for about half a mile to get and have a look at dare I say a hole in the ground with some interesting things. Was that that wasn't the horse skeleton, was it?
That was, yes.
It was the horse skeleton, yeah.
And that was very much linked to our statutory role, working to support Somerset Council regarding archaeology and working with the contractors who undertook the excavations, but finding an opportunity all the time for the public to engage with heritage. And I think yes, there is, but I think increasingly, as we've said today, our identity as a charity is very important. Increasing individual donations, corporate donations, and again, as we kind of grow and develop, I think our brand will become increasingly important. One of the difficulties we face is we're quite complicated. We don't just do one thing. We're not just a museum trust. We don't just run a single museum site. We do many things across the kind of whole spectrum of heritage. And again, that's both a kind of benefit and a positive, but at times can be a challenge to work around that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's thoroughly reassuring for me, and I'm sure for many others, that you've entered into a 20-year agreement with the council, which will at least take you into the future, because there's nothing worse than running an charitable organisation, where your main focus when you get up in the morning is where's the money to keep us going for the next 3 or 4 months. So at least you've got surety on that. But I don't suppose the council funding is in itself is enough, but it gives you enough of a platform to be able to go and fundraise elsewhere.
Correct. I mean, it's the absolute core foundation of what we do. And you're right, the councillors remain loyal and committed, but it is the foundation, and the trust is increasingly having to find additional ways, new ways, better ways of generating revenue through commercial activity, through an increasing relationship with other authorities, through contracts or through grant funding with trust and foundations, looking at ways of reducing our costs, for example, through green energy initiatives. An essential and primary part of my role and the board's role now is to provide long-term financial security for the organisation. But it's a challenging environment, and inflation in particular is a major pressure on our core local authority funding.
Yes, and just to reiterate Sam's remarks earlier on, I mean, we are hugely grateful for what Somerset Council do for the Trust, and particularly mindful of the circumstances that the Council faces, makes us doubly grateful. But yeah, it's not easy, but we're trying to create this charitable business and definitely improve our profile, both in Somerset and in the Southwest region. Yeah, that's what we're really up for over the next 2 or 3 years.
Brilliant. Okay, are there any other questions? If not, I thank you both very much for a very interesting presentation and coming on today. And I apologise you kept waiting beyond the agreed time. But thank you very much, and hopefully look forward to seeing you again in 12 months' time.
Yeah,
something like that.
Thank you very much.
Right. We now move on to the last item on the agenda, which is the work programme. I notice, and I'm sure we discussed this at the pre-meeting, that the annual lead member for communities was supposed to be giving a report today, but I received her apologies earlier, but I just wondered whether whether that is going to come to a future meeting.
It will do, Chair. I was advised by Chris Hall that it was unable to come to this meeting, so my assumption that it will come to the next one, but I will confirm that.
Thank you very much. Right, so next time we've got the Glastonbury wash up, the Home Finder report, which will include, I think, some of the questions that Councillor Kravis has about how the Seaward Way, or is it called Rainbow Way now? Rainbow Way is now working. And in February, we've got housing landlord options appraisal. We've got various items on the forward plan, which I need to pin down with Democratic Services how they're going to fit in, because I think this particular committee is expected to wind up its business after our April meeting and be subsumed into the climate and place. Is that right?
In terms of timeframes, Chair, yes, but effectively both committees will cease to exist, and there'll be a new one.
Right. We're all merging or whatever. Yeah. I mean, the important thing for me, I think, is the items, and some of these I think are quite punchy. Don't get lost in the sort of transition between the two. One question I do have is at the top bullet point on the forward plans is devolution progression. Now I see that the Corporate and Resources Scrutiny actually discussed devolution last week. So has the responsibility changed?
Chair, if I may, yes. So in terms of devolution of assets and services that come within the remit of the community's scrutiny, for example, the sort of things that Sarah Dowden and Jonathan Stevens have brought, that still remains very much with yourself. So they're kind of business cases for individual pieces of work. The overarching programme of local devolution is accountable to the Corporate and Resources Scrutiny, and the report that we took last week is an update. It may, I expect it's probably of interest to members if they haven't already seen it, so through Jamie perhaps we can get that circulated. And as I mentioned earlier, Jess Kemish has now stepped in as a secondment to our local devolution lead as well, so she's a really good source of information on what we're doing, the programme as a whole. But yes, we were advised, I don't know if you remember a conversation some months ago, we were advised that the overall programme reports into Corporate and Resources Scrutiny.
I mean, I think I've probably said at the time, but I mean, the splitting of subjects is not ideal in my mind, unless there is absolute clarity over where the demarcation is. And I mean, if you're looking at a high level review, that's one thing, and getting down with the weeds is what we do, that's fine. But I mean, it's just to make sure that everybody understands that at officer level, as well as the committees that are considering it. Otherwise you get sort of drift and issues bleeding out into each other and things like that. Marcus.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You mentioned there was something bubbling away in the background that everyone's looking at. Do you mind if we sort of get an idea what they are? You say it's things that could be added, but you're not sure.
I don't know what this is. Beg your pardon. If you go to page 98, we've got a list for this, 9 bullet points there, some of which I think have been picked up, but I'll talk to Rebecca and to Jamie about where we can fit them all in. Whether we'll get them all in before the end of April, I don't know. And some of them, I think the libraries thing has been, per se, it's been a bit of a movable feast. There hasn't been something to necessarily pin down into a report. Yes,
coming on that one because it's within my remit as well. So as you'll be aware, there was a needs assessment and there was a view that proposals could come to this committee for consideration. At the moment, there's discussion about a more strategic approach to the future of the library service. We're working with other colleagues and potentially our transformation business partners. So as soon as we've got some update on that, we'll make sure you're aware. Thank you.
And I think that's true with several of the other subjects. They're still sort of whiffling around a little bit. Sue Osborne, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was a bit slow getting my hand up, but it was in relation to the devolution item, which, yes, it did come to scrutiny, Corporate and Resources last week, and I also at the executive yesterday. What I was going to suggest.
I'm sorry, Sue, your connection is very poor. You're breaking up.
Oh God, yeah, I knew it wasn't going to last all morning. Hopefully that's better. What I was going to suggest was, at the moment you seem to have a split in devolution between some of it comes to this committee, some of it goes, the overarching is Corporate and Resources. As this committee is going to be folded into climate and place, why not put the whole lot of devolution into Corporate and Resources? I'm a little bit like you, Chair. I'm a little bit nervous about when subjects get split between different committees, because there's a risk that things can get missed, in that there's an assumption that one will deal with it. And as a result, nobody deals with it because everyone assumes everybody else is.
Okay, I think that's a good point. I think one of the things I'd like to add as possibly our final agenda item as this committee would be a direction of travel of all the outstanding subjects. So if we can discuss that in April, so we have a clarity on where it's all being picked up and who will be responsible with it in future, so we can all go to those committee meetings and make ourselves known and a nuisance and things like that. Oh, sorry, did I say that? So Sue, thank you for that. I think it's a good point. And thank you, Liz, for your comments. Are there any other questions or items you think we should be discussing? If not, I will thank everybody for their time and their contributions. Apologies for the half an hour overrun, but I think we've had a good meeting and we've covered a lot of ground today. So thank you all very much, and we will see you again on the 8th of December.
Thank you, Chair.